justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Ms. Lawrence.
Mr. Venus.
Present.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Here.
Mr. Lombardo.
Here.
Ms. McDermott. Here. Mr. McGinley.
Present.
Mr. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Perry.
Here.
Mr. Thornton.
Here.
Mr. Urban.
Here.
Mr. Wilovich.
Here.
Ms. Radel.
Here.
All present.
All right, thank you. We will now have public comment on the proposed ordinance placing a government study commission question on the May 16th, 2023 primary municipal election ballot and designating the number of members to serve on said commission. Rick Morelli.
You have to sign in to talk.
Yeah.
You want to send that? I'll send it up.
Or you can wait until we finish calling people. It's up to you. Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Morelli. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Rick Morelli, Schulof Township, former Government Study Commission member, as well as former council member here on council. I came to share my thoughts on this. When I read in the paper that some people are actually thinking about changing the charter and putting a study commission together, I find it to be very concerning, and I think it would be very foolish if that would happen. First of all, you have to understand that putting another 11-person commission together could change the entire charter, could go back to 3 commissions, could do everything. You're not going to tweak it here or there. You could change anything. You could get 11 people politically motivated to get on that commission, and who knows what could happen. Let's remember, in last 10 years, I asked, what's so wrong with this charter? We went from $500 million in debt down to $200 million in debt to an A rating. This didn't even have a debit credit rating when we got to this charter, we got to this government. Look at the corruption that took place 11 years ago with 3 people, with the row offices and all that stuff that took place. You remember there's no cap of taxes, there's an 8% tax cap that helps to prevent things. How about the fact that we keep council members, elected officials out of the political part of it? There's no political hirings and firings from this part. I don't remember an article in 10 years talking about nepotism, about people hiring their friends and family and all that. The charter's not perfect, but do you really think that if you put a new charter together that 10 years from now they're going to say this is perfect? It's not. It's a structure. It's not perfect. You can tweak it. You got to work together, but it's working. Okay, I mean, I get it. It's tough with 11 people, but members, this charter was put together because of all the corruption that took place, and I'll speak on for the most part of the 11 members. This was put together to protect the public, to have accountability, to have checks and balances, and to make sure that everything rolls to somebody else. And I would also stress, because there's talk about a hired manager or a elected manager. I was actually someone who voted for that, and after I've learned being on council, I would strongly disagree. Do you realize how political that person will be? Well, if that person or a couple people run, all the people out there who are politically motivated will be sending them money for contracts, for friends, all that stuff. And if you think your meetings sometimes are contentious with the manager, wait till that manager comes to a meeting and says, "You can't touch me for 4 years. I report to the people. I'll hire somebody who I want." And I will say this. I know people, I've been around this county, I know the politics around it. I know for a fact that there are people out there who hate this study commission, or excuse me, this charter, because they can't get their friends and family. There are people, and I'll finish here one second.
You can keep going. Your timer started like 20 seconds before you started speaking.
Thank you. There are people out there right now who want to put a campaign together to get rid of the charter because I know politically they are upset that they can't get their friends. They say to me, this charter stinks. And I question, why does it stink? Because they can't get the contracts. They can't get their friends. They're not coming to you when you run for council giving you all the money because you're irrelevant. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing, not personally, but the fact that you can't go out and help them. Listen, all I'm saying is that think about it. You're intelligent people. You're doing well. You can have your differences. Again, you can have your challenges here in the county. But when you look at the big picture, it's working. And don't throw something out after 10, 11 years. You guys are doing a good job. We're getting good people who are not really politically involved on council, involved with our government, not only here with the ABCs. All that stuff never took place before. So please stay the course. keep up the good work and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Morelli. Vivian Kreidler Messina.
Vivian Carter Messina from Nesbitt. I'm here because of the home rule charter. We don't need to reform what's here. As the gentleman just said, you do a good job, but what we do need is that you sit and talk to one another. Stop the political fight. Because you know what? The people of Luzerne County don't care if you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, as long as you're doing what's right for them. And it seems to be that council members have forgotten that you work for the people. The people don't work for you. We pay your salaries. We say if you're going to stay next election, or if we're going to boot you and put somebody else in. That's the honor we get, is to put you in this position. But once you get in this position, you seem to forget that. It's very odd that six members of are up for re-election in 2023, and all of a sudden we have 2 members that had private meetings, decided they wanted to put all these amendments on the ballot for May. And you throw it up to everybody, but nobody sat and talked and said, hey, should we really do this? Yous don't need to be changed. What needs to be changed is this. And what I'm saying, we don't need a study commission to do it, because you can do it yourselves with the help of the law. You need to go through this and take out the double standards. And believe me, there is a lot of them in there. It took me over 30 days to read this because I created such a headache from it because of all the double standards. First one being, and I'll say this real quick because I'm actually getting off of my thing, is the section, it's under Article 1, General Powers, Section 1.06, State Law. The provision of a charter shall supersede any state law which is inconsistent to the extent of inconspiracy, except when applied to law prevents home charter rule from superseding state law. Nobody supersedes the state law. The state law is the law. Just as like when Mr. Urban was elected to be the board chair on the election committee, on the election board. And he was told he couldn't because the charter said, no, you can't do that. But state law says you can do that. I would like to see a county council member on every board and every commission in this county. So we bridge that gap between the three, between all of us. You know what's going on. You don't have people coming in here and you looking at us like we got 4 heads because you knew nothing about it. Guess I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Dombrowski.
And that's a no for me on this.
Mr. Morelli was right right on with what he said, but beyond, you only forgot one thing, which I happen to notice, and Attorney Skeen, you're the man of the hour right now. On the question on the proposed ordinance, I don't think that's legally correct, because you only missed 2 words, the same word 2 times, but I'm going to read it. It says, shall a government study commission of 7 members be elected to study the existing form of government of the county of Luzerne, consider the advisability of the adoption of an optional form of government or a home rule charter? I'm going to stop right there because you already have a home rule charter. So what it should say there is a revised home rule charter. So we'll continue on. You have the same problem coming up again, to recommend the adoption of an optional form of government or to draft and recommend a home rule charter. Again, you already have a home rule charter, so it's legally incorrect right now. You can't vote today on it. That's my opinion. I'm not an attorney. We do have 2 present, Carl and yourself, and I would defer to both of you, not just to one or the other. But I don't think you can vote on this tonight because it's not worded properly. The wording, as you know, Attorney Skeen, matters very much in a legal document. The wording's off by a tiny bit, even 2%. Sometimes that flushes the whole document down the toilet. So I don't think you can vote tonight on that. But beyond that, he's trying to say something. But, all right, so if we step aside from that for 1 second, I wanted to ask Mr. Urban, he doesn't have to answer right this second, but if you would kindly answer.
Mr.
What-
Dombrowski, just please address the council as a whole. If you're gonna ask a question, just, ask it as a whole.
Right,
please.
but since he proposed it, that's why I'm asking it specifically to him, because last meeting, if you remember, Mr. Lombardo, he didn't say any reasons why he wanted to amend the charter or possibly go back to the 3 commissioner system. And if you don't state any reasons why, I don't know what people are gonna think. I would ask you tonight, if they are gonna vote on it, if Mr. Skeen and Carl both think it's okay to vote on it, if you kindly state what your reasons are, what you think. You said specifically that our government isn't working, but you never said how. What does that mean? The document we're talking about, the Home Rule Charter, is 69 pages long. So if you want to denigrate something that's 69 pages long, my father was one of the framers of it. I'm not making him out to be some sort of saint for that reason. There was many other people to help. Dave Chomp, who ran, tried to be appointed to those positions here. He was one of the framers as well. So I mean, if you're going to denigrate the people who created the Home Rule Charter, or the charter itself is 69 pages long, and just say our government isn't working, that's really a foolish comment. And I don't think you should propose an ordinance under those circumstances without being able to back it up.
Thank you, Mr. Dombrowski.
That's
Let me,
Mr. Urban, can we just wait until all the public is
Well,
finished, and
whatever.
then you can, and then
Okay,
you can, because I'm sure more council members have comments than just yourself.
All right.
So if you just put a pin on that for a little bit, I apologize.
okay.
Mr. Knapp?
Discussion regarding ordinance placing.
Oh, Mr. Knapp, by the way, I apologize. Is it okay, because you're speaking
Yeah,
on the Home
you
Rule
can
Charter, can we just
disregard that.
disregard this? Okay,
Yes,
thank
I
you.
wanted the public to see what my opinion
Okay,
is.
all right,
on
go ahead.
mine. And to reiterate what I said last week and including, sometime last year, February of last year, the same subject came up. In that, timeframe, a solicitor chief Shannon Craig, last name I can't pronounce, specified in an article in the Times Leader about the possible creation of a government study commission, and quote, council cannot seek to form a study commission focused only on improving the current charter. Instead, the study commission must have the freedom under the state law to independently decide whether it wants to keep and modify the current home rule structure, draft an entirely new charter, or revert back to the old structure. That would be the 3 commissions. That's what sets me back. We don't want to go back to accumulating debt. With this to be a fact, I would suggest that current council members try to resolve deficiencies that the charter has, placing all pride and mean spirits to the side. If they can amend ordinances and work out the flaws, then we won't be wasting valuable time it would take for a government study commission to review and make their decisions. Currently, the Home Rule Charter has helped in reducing inherited debt accumulated under the 3 commission form government, according to resources, $466 million has now been reduced to just over under 200 million. Is that accurate?
465 and about 220
220?
in that area.
All right, so it has helped in securing a good credit rating as well, which should tell taxpayers and residents to hold council members accountable for better budgetary decisions. Public comments are to be recognized for success in this area. We have to, as a whole, being able to speak these 3 minutes, keep you on your toes, doing your job appropriately. To vote in favor of a government study commission would be paramount to kicking the proverbial can down the road. Here we are. Took 18 months, painstaking months to draw it up into existence, and our residents voted on it November 2nd, 2010. So there could be a separation of 3 branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial, while all in a view for transparent process to hold all officials accountable in their roles. My position is, it might not be perfect, but maybe our federal government could learn from this government body and how it's operating.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp.
That ceiling, they want to raise again, don't they?
Mr. Griffith?
Good evening. On the Government Study Commission issue, we wouldn't even be sitting here if it wasn't for PJ Best, Charlie Hatchell, and myself, who started the original process. And Mr. Urban, who was a county commissioner, who voted to allow the people to vote if they wanted this form of government. So we can all say how wonderful and great this county charter is, and I agree. There are very good sections of that charter. I'll agree with Mr. Morelli. I sat on that study commission, and we kicked this thing around quite a bit for 18 months. And I'm pretty proud of the charter that we drafted. However, there were some issues in that charter that I was not in favor of because I thought they were fatal flaws. I think we have a 75 to 80% charter that works really well. The fact that we can pay down the debt is great because it's mandated. We're not doing this because council member here say, well, we're going to pay down the debt. We're doing it because we have to. And that was one of the provisions that we put in the charter because it was important. So we need to recognize that the home rule government is a good form of government. To Mr. Morelli's point about there's people out there that want us to go back to 3 commissioner form. When we formed the Government Study Commission back in 2019, there were people then that wanted us to stay with 3 commissioners too. So the same scenario applied. There were people that said, oh, you can't form a Government Study Commission because that won't work and blah. We went through all of that, but the commissioner said, we're going to put it on the ballot, let the people speak. And that's what we need to do here. Let them speak. There are some issues in this charter that we recognize that are problems with this county. The fact that we had an election just recently that went to total chaos and we still have the same person working here because there's no control over whether the manager keeps somebody here who is not able to do their job or not is just a flaw in the charter. He's accountable by firing the manager. But as I said when I was on the study commission, every time something goes wrong, you can't fire the manager or you would never get a permanent manager. We have a search committee in place for the manager because the people want the politics out of it. So let's keep the politics out of it, approve a Government Study Commission, let them come together, form a commission, and let's trust those people to put people on the commission that will do that job right. And we can campaign against it if we want. We get 7 people on there that we think are going rogue and want to go switch back to 3 commissioners. Our right in a democracy is to campaign against that. When they bring the charter and it's not a good charter, our right as a democracy is to campaign against that charter and not get the people to approve it. That's what democracy is all about. To allow 11 people to just say, hey, you know what? We're not putting it on the ballot and force us to get 10,000 signatures in order to get our will done is terrible. It's not the way democracy should work. And I think that's one of the problems we have with the charter is that people really don't have a voice in their government because it's very prohibitive of the amount of signatures that you'll get to be able to get it on as a regular person. We tried this 3 times in a row. In 2017, I tried to form a commission to get signatures. And there's members of this council that were on that committee to form a Government Study Commission. And now that same person is voting to just amend it. It's insane.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mr. Wonder, I don't mean to be interrupted. But is it possible, we all sit here and we listen to you, we're not texting on our phones or looking at our phones. Is this, the temporary manager up there is doing that? I'm wondering if you could tell us if anybody has spoken about.
I apologize.
Since
All right,
he's on his phone.
we'll finish our public comment, okay? Thank you. District Attorney Sanguinolci.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here actually to echo the sentiments of Mr. Griffith. I've heard a lot of comments, about how the charter has ended corruption or stopped corruption. It wasn't the charter that did that. Let me respectfully submit, it was you that did that. It was people that did that. People that were commissioners that were accused of the corruption. The corruption ran rampant in this courthouse. The judges were arrested for it. It wasn't the form of government that did that. It was the people that were elected. And this is a choice, and again, to echo the sentiments of Mr. Griffith, that I respectfully submit that this should be a choice of the people, of all the people, not just the people that come to this room and speak, not just the people that sit on this board. And as Mr. Griffith said, again, I think it's our job to get out there and campaign and convince the people, all of us that have sat here, that have worked in this courthouse, what changes need to be done. Over the course of the last few weeks, I've read in the newspaper, I've spoken to some of you about the changes that you seek to implement, and they're good changes. I agree with almost all of them. But to make a dozen changes by way of ordinance is simply something that I can't believe would even be allowed by law. Reducing the number of people that the residents of Luzerne County get to vote for and represent them in this room is not a minor change. We have major flaws In this charter, as you know, our former district attorney was voted to be removed by a simple majority. If I wanted to remove the dog catcher of the borough of Jeddo for committing a crime, I have to do a full warrant action, a full trial, and a decision by a court. This is a major problem that subjects us to litigation. As district attorney with the manager, I sit on the ACE commission, which, as you see, is fatally flawed. It has no rules, no procedures, no teeth, essentially. We have meeting after meeting where we have debates that the charter gives us no guidance. We have multiple open division head positions. There are questions about accountability. My submission to you is there are too many changes, that this decision needs to go on the ballot, and it's our job to convince the people of the changes that need to be made. I've heard comments about the fact that this decision would denigrate our founders, and I couldn't disagree more, especially Mr. Griffith being one of them. I've spoken to the founders. They complained about the lack of resources they were given and the flaws that they now recognize after having seen this charter in action. The charter itself is not bad, it does need to be updated. We need to face the facts that there are major problems with the charter that can only be fixed by putting it on the ballot, by having a study commission correct it, and by us doing our jobs convincing the study commission of the right things to put in a new charter. I read in the newspaper about comments about hiring a new manager and the uncertainty of putting this on the ballot and where that would leave us with a new manager. But I submit to you that the fact that we have an uncertainty now, we need to make it clear that we're going to correct this charter, that we are going to put it on the ballot, and that will lead us to the correct decisions in hiring a new manager. Thank you all.
Thank you. Mr. Rapo?
Mark Rabo, Hazelton. Good evening, council, acting manager, ladies and gentlemen. I stand here before you as somebody who was impacted by the Home Rule Charter in 2015, when a provision of the charter, an unlawful one at that, because the state assembly earlier that year in 2015 passed a statute amending the Municipal Authorities Act to allow for authority board members or council members to serve on authority boards. And that restriction, that 1-year restriction, was in the charter. Now, I knew of this amendment that was passed to the Authorities Act in 2015, but I proceeded to run, even at the behest of the former council chair at the time and the solicitor and other members of the council that have said to me, you can't serve. And I knew I could, but they were afraid that I would challenge it in court, and thereby it would open up a can of worms that the charter was flawed. So therefore, and I concur wholeheartedly with everything that the district attorney just said up here, because not only can you not, as the councilman who's proposing to amend the charter piecemeal by individual ordinance, it is unlawful. Under state Supreme Court ruling Pilcheski versus Lackawanna County Commissioners 2014, the justices ruled unanimously that in order to amend any home rule charter by structural change, and I emphasize structural change, it has to be done by Government Study Commission. Now, you could change the process and procedures within the chart, as it was done in 2016, the last time it was done by a previous council with the 1-year restriction. Some, jokingly and laughingly call it the Rabo resolution. But, it was passed, it was adopted by the voters of Luzerne County, and the restriction was removed. Now, some of the public and people have said, well, question number 3 allows for going back to commissioner form. It also says to go to optional plan. And if we go to optional plan, there are no counties in the state that have optional plan. So then we'll be really in a pickle. So if I propose an alternative solution to this council and to the public, if you don't want question number 3 on the ballot, there is a way to amend the charter and not go back to commissioner form and not do a piecemeal. Question number 2, let me finish 1 minute. Shall a government study commission of 7, 9, or 11 members be elected to study the existing form of government of the municipality to consider the advisability of adoption of a home rule charter, and if advisable, to draft and recommend a home rule charter? So that leaves it within the confines of home rule. That means they can't go, nobody can go back to commissioner form, nobody can go to optional plan. It stays within home rule.
Thank you, Mr. Rabo.
So I propose that alternative option. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all for the slips. Anybody else in the audience for public input?
Stephen Urban, former commissioner and council member here in Luzerne County.
What town do you live in, Mr. Urban?
Yeah, Walter Griffith of Wilkes-Barre.
Okay.
Walter Griffith was correct. About 15 years ago, 3 individuals came to the Board of Commissioners and asked to do a home rule study. And so we did a little research on it. We said, yeah, why should we make the people go out and collect signatures and put it on the ballot? It's, after all, it's your government. Whatever the people want, they get. So we allowed it to go on the ballot. I don't see anything different that's happening today. You have a charter. They're asking to put the question on the ballot to do a study commission. The study commission looks at the existing charter. As they look at it, they go through issues that they believe might need change. They go through issues that they like with the charter. They bring them out in public in the paper. People have the time to digest it. And then it's put together and they can say, nope, we don't want to vote anything. We want to leave everything the same. We can make individual changes to issues within the county, or we can just not do anything. So that's an option that people have. But I think here tonight, you're here to give people that option. Their option, that's all it is to it. And then the people who run for the office are the ones that are going to make that change. Not any of you unless you run for the office, and anybody can run for the office. I don't think there's any restriction on who could run for it. So, I mean, 7 of you could run for that home rule study commission if you want. If that's what the number is, it's 7. So you have that option to sit on it and review it. I think in other counties throughout this country, there's mandatory clauses built in the charter that every 10 years, people are appointed by council or by the commissioners to look at the charter to see if changes are being made. This charter has been in place, I think, for about 10 years now, 11 years. I think there are some issues that need to be changed. Number one is Rick Morelli brags about paying down the debt. You know, when I became a commissioner, this county was able to legally raise about $80 million a year in tax revenue because they were restricted by state law to 25 mills, 30 mills if you went to court. That brought in about $80 million. When you're dealing with a $100 million budget, you know, you got a $20 million shortfall. The answer to that was reassessment. It took 3 years to convince Tom Mikowski to do a reassessment to put it on the ballot. He did that with me. And then Mary Ann Petrillo and I finished reassessment. So 3 of us did the reassessment. So you're able to have a tax base now that you can draw money from. If you didn't have that reassessment, you'd be borrowing about $80 to $90 million a year. And the debt wouldn't be 25 or 500 million. It'd be about $1 billion right now. So you can thank the commissioners for having the fortitude to put that on the ballot, reassessment, and to work it, and to stand up with 150 to 200 people in meetings saying they didn't want it, but at the same time getting phone calls from people on the other side saying, we want it, we need tax fairness in the county. Secondly, I think there are things in the charter that need changed. Number one, you don't have a salary board. Manager sits there, you can just create a position, put a salary on it, and come to you at budget cycle and say, I need more money to support the budget. Now you're forced to raise taxes or make cuts someplace else. I think that's an issue that needs to be looked at.
Thank you,
Salary
Mr.
board.
Urban.
Also, you got a $32 million prison budget with no oversight, none whatsoever, no oversight. You know, you need a prison board. There's one call for in state law. This charter did away with the prison board. Nothing at all to oversight. $32 million of expenditure. You don't know what's going on. All you do is, here's the budget, pass it or not. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Urban. Anybody else in the audience for public comment?
Bob Kalabowski, if I could, I would like to, would you introduce your, I'd like you to introduce yourself.
Mr. Kalabowski, up to the microphone, and can you please state your municipality? you live in?
Can you introduce yourself to the
This
audience?
is an opportunity for public comment for you. So you can read our nameplates.
Well, here we are, folks. This is our county council.
I believe Wilkes-Barre
Sheriff
City.
is ready.
What's your municipality, sir?
I'm in Wilkes-Barre, the murder capital of Luzerne County. I agree with Walter Griffith, Mr. Urban, and the district attorney. There are definitely good things about this council, and also I think there's some bad things about this council. And I think what we want to do is just let's give the people a chance to vote, to do any changes that that have to be made to make everything right. I mean, there's been accusations made about this board because my one friend said, why are all these managers quitting? Why is there always a manager? It doesn't seem like we could hold somebody. We can't hold somebody in the Board of Elections, and we can't hold somebody in as a manager. Why? There was accusations made by Mr. Robinson that certain members of this council were saying there wasn't enough Ds being appointed to certain things or given certain jobs. There's something wrong. But I actually think what we have to do is make this change, get it on the ballot so we can see what do the people really want. Is there something wrong here? Why did Mr. Robinson, from what I understand, he only took a 6 months lease out because I think he was warned of what could happen and he's gone. And how many other managers have we lost? I think we need a change, or at least look at it. I mean, I like to point that, Mr. Urban, he brought out how much the commissioners, how much they help bringing more taxes in and getting the debt down. But there's something wrong here with this type of government or whatever. I don't know enough about it, but I do agree with Mr. Urban, and I agree with Walter Griffith and the district attorney. The people should have a chance to see what they want. And I think a thing is, when people come down here, like Mr. Griffith, who's smarter than him with the government? Only allowed to talk for 3 minutes. It's disheartening. People take time off from work and come down here. You're allowed 3 minutes, and then you have to talk to the council as a whole. Now, I've tried to ask the election board, how do you talk to them as a whole? Tell me what you do as a whole. And I'd like this council to take a look and see how people that, when you go to that election board and talk how they're treated. We need it. I think we actually need to take a chance and make some changes here, because I don't think this thing is working the way it should. And does anybody want to say anything? Most likely not.
Thank you, sir.
Does anybody want to answer? Anybody?
Thank you, Mr. Kavalowski.
Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment that's in the audience?
Anybody want to twitch?
Hi, Jamie Walsh from Ross Township. Just a couple of questions. Have you guys put together a pros and cons? Has anybody put together a pros and cons list of going back to a 3-commissioner system versus what's happening?
Do you want to finish your comment? We can answer the questions, or I don't want to answer for everybody. I can answer
The reason I'm asking
myself.
that is because there's 7 counties that I could find in Pennsylvania that are home rule, and the other 60 counties operate either under the commissioner or another one, or 3 commissioners, whatever. And I think that if it's working for 60 other counties, let's face it, home rule was a test. It was a test that was voted on 15, whatever it was, 12, 15 years ago. And now you put it to the people to see if that test worked or failed. But I think a lot can be done by making a pros and cons list of the 3-commissioner system, a pros and cons list before anything is done, a pros and cons list of a council, and bring them to us and talk about it together. Because if 60 other counties in Pennsylvania out of the 67 are operating under another form of government, maybe that's the better option. How well are the other 7 home rule counties doing? What are they doing? Are they having some of the same struggles? Have any of you reached out to the other home rule counties to see what kind of struggles that they're having? Or is there any communication going on? And I know a lot of you are newly elected this year, so you're probably drinking from a fire hose with a lot of this, but I think there could be a lot done before. Obviously, if it's put on the ballot and it goes to the people, I'm always going to be for that. But I think with some real hard data, and like I said, a pros and cons list being done of both types of government, would really shed some light on whether this is the right thing to do or not. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience for public comment? Anybody else? All right, we'll go to the Zoom. Claudia Glennon.
Hi, Claudia Glennon, Salem Township. I think,
Miss Glennon, hold on one second. We're having a hard time hearing you. The volume is very, very low.
it's not low on my phone, so is it on your end?
Yeah, it's on our end, Miss Glennon. Just 1 second.
Okay, okay,
Oh, okay, we can hear you a little better now.
okay. Claudia Glennon, Salem Township. I think that there's a big miss here. And that is, if a citizens commission is formed and we truly desire to know what Luzerne County citizens want and need, the committee needs to be reflective of its total population, not a selection nor election of red team or blue team members. And if we use the current census, let me give a suggestion of how I think it would be more representative of all community voices. We're not looking for the voice that's the loudest, the mostest, the richest, the most educated. We're looking for the best answer for our community. First, our community is half male, half female. Second, our range of ages spread from 18 and up. And I would say that under 18-year-olds are also affected and might have useful input. Our committee must represent this. Our community is made up of greater, according to the current census, 1% of the following demographics: white, Black, Asian, Hispanic, Latina, immigrants, those not born in America, and veterans. And there are many others. These groups must all be represented by at least one member. We have an average income level, above average, below average representation, homeowners, renters, maybe even more divisions would be useful. We have education levels that vary. Less than high school, college, postgraduate. These levels must be represented. There could very well be other groups that would provide useful and an important opportunity of a voice in our community if we really want to know what all our community thinks and needs. Each member must be represented. A committee of this type and makeup, provided with the resources it needs to understand what is needed, will respond with a much better answer than any group of partisan or demographically limited participants. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Glennon. Anybody else on the Zoom for public comment? Okay, we have one email. This is from, it looks like Robin Cochan. Public comment from Robin and Walter Cochan of Dallas Township for Luzerne County Council meeting to be read audibly, entered into the record for the proposed Government Study Commission ordinance. As admitted by many council members, the current home rule study charter is not, current home rule charter is not working in that there are several areas of contradiction and confusion over areas of responsibility. While we prefer clarity and actually supported the change from a 3-commissioner system to county council, this has not been efficient or the best governing. We also see studies as a continuation of passing the buck and stalling. Ask the people what they want first, and then possibly commissioning a study to the best implement that choice would waste less time and money and address the desires of the public. It could easily be done by placing these 3 questions on the May 2023 election ballot. Do you prefer remaining with the current home rule charter consisting of 11 members of Luzerne County Council? Do you prefer improving and revising the current home rule charter in Luzerne County? Do you prefer Luzerne County returning to a 3-commissioner government? Truth is always the strongest argument. Sophocles. That's the only thing we have. Anybody else for public comment? Mr. Urban, do you want to respond?
Sure. First of all, the proposal is to have 7 members of the public, or let me just take a step back. Number one, anybody can run for this particular office for a government study commission. Anybody over the age of 18 in this county. So, you would petition just like any other candidate, put your name on the ballot, get elected. You're going to have to campaign to get elected for the study commission. And we don't know what side of the fence anybody's on. Any member of the public can run. I think, the media has a responsibility to go and ask the people that do decide to run, what's your position? What side of the aisle would you be on? Or philosophically, where do you stand? Whether or not you want to go back to three commissioners or continue with home rule. Now, Mr. Dombrowski, legally, there's only 3 questions prescribed under state statute that you can ask. So you can't add the word revised on the question. So if you look at the law, there's only 3 questions that you can ask. And the proposed question that I put there is verbatim out of the state statute. So I want to clear that. Well, that.
I know it's another
that-
story for
that
another
we-
day, but it may be wrong.
We're not the legislature. We don't write the laws. We have to follow it.
You're discussing revising it.
All right, Mr.
I
Dombrowski.
understand, but what I'm saying is that the way the question has to be phrased is within the statute of Pennsylvania Commonwealth statute. So that's why it's written that way. Okay, so we have to follow up. We took an oath under the Constitution and the state laws. And structurally, Mr. Rabo had mentioned the 2014 case in Lackawanna County. That was a unanimous decision. If you're changing the structure of any home rule government, even as so much as something simple as taking the county manager off the airport board up at Avoca, which is really a legislative position, but he's an executive, he gets to sit on it as a voting member of the legislative sort of body of that airport board. That would be a structural change because it's a switch in power. Just say if the Government Study Commission wants to insert a council member in his place, that has to be done by Government Study Commission. It cannot be a simple ordinance. Mr. Attorney Venus proposed the possibility of changing the amount of council members from 11 down to 7 over the course of 4 years. That's a structural change. You're removing elected positions from the original charter, the way it was written with 11 members. That's a structural change. That can only be done by Government Study Commission. It can't be done by simple ordinance. Things that can be done by simple ordinance are process changes, process only. Election board. We're the only county in this entire Commonwealth that has an all-citizen election board. I've looked at other charters and admin codes for the home rule counties throughout the Commonwealth, Northampton, Erie. Those counties have at least 1 member of council on their boards, which adds sort of continuity when it comes to budgetary process. We have a fight between what's right in state statute under Title 25 and Title 53. Title 53 is the municipal, generally speaking, like set of statutes where, where the DA is right when he said, how do you have a council remove a sitting district attorney? We can't do that legally, but our charter says we can. But under state law, there are about 12 provisions that you cannot diminish or sort of enlarge your powers under a charter form of government. And one of them is the conduct of elections and registering voters, which in my opinion says go ahead and defer to Title 25, which, we put authority boards and commission members, we vote on them and put them in power to be our eyes and ears and to do the duties under those prescribed areas. And with the Board of Elections, they don't have the full power to do what they need to do as board members that are appointed by us. They're pretty much told by management that you have to stay out of the office. You can't interfere. I mean, they're a quasi judicial board. If you go and look at case law and you go and read the law, they have a whole litany of powers and duties that we kind of just throw out the window because the Office of Law says we have an admin code, which is an ordinance which enlarge management's powers, but diminishes the Board of Elections powers, which, like I said, in the past few weeks, that I am going to be proposing an admin code change because, and I'm partly at fault because I served on council, for the first 4 years of this government, and we didn't properly vet the admin code against state statute. Just like this charter that we have today was never properly vetted with DCED to bump it and compare it up against state statute. I mean, do you realize even under the election portion or election board portion of our charter, it states that you have to be a member of your political party for 5 years before you can actually be a Board of Elections and Registration member. That is reverse age discrimination. You turn 18, you can register to vote, but you can't serve on our Board of Elections and Registration here in Luzerne County, but you can serve as a council member at 18 because you can go out and get elected. So you can be a council member, you can go to war, you can get killed for this country, but you can't serve on Luzerne County's Board of Elections. Constitutionally speaking, if it was ever challenged in court, it probably would fail. I think it would be overturned, that section and that whole provision would be thrown out because of the discrimination in that section. 21, you can drink, you can gamble, but you can't serve on the Board of Elections here in Luzerne County here at least 23. You're going to college, maybe you want to be a poli-sci major, you want to test the waters and be on the Board of Elections, you can't serve here in Luzerne County. The provisions of where you have to be a member of your political party for 4 years. Like I said, in theory, if everybody went and changed their registration, no one would qualify. No one would qualify to sit on our Board of Elections and Registration. That, to me, is a foundational problem too. I am running for re-election this year. So are some other colleagues here. I don't know about them, but I surely don't have full faith and confidence in our election process after 2 years worth of debacle in this county. And that's our foundation of government, is to make it better, improve it. Now, I suggest that the public, if you want to run for a government study commission, and I hope my colleagues pass this tonight, run for the office. I didn't like home rule at the beginning. I think there are good parts that do work. I have to agree, there are parts of this charter that do work. So would I be a proponent to go back to 3 commissioners at this point? Probably not. But it's up to those 7 members who are elected. And there will probably be about 12 to 18 months worth of work to look at this form of government as it currently stands and adjust it to fix it, to make it better. And at that point, those people will suggest whether or not you want to go to 3 commissioners, you want to fix this home rule government and create a modified version of this charter and make it better with the improvements. Instead of being 75%, you can make it maybe 95% or 98%. Mr. Knapp? Because 75% to me is not good enough.
Doesn't change my.
Well, I get it, but there's questions about even the acting county manager at times. I believe we can go and hire whoever we want as an acting county manager outside of this county. If you don't have any qualified people within the county of 1,500, the Office of Law says you have to hire within for an acting county manager. If we don't have a qualified individual to be in that chair, well, what do? We're stuck. We're stuck from the pool of people that we have here. And we can't go out and beyond the scope of the courthouse with 300,000 residents that we have. So, it's subject to interpretation. So what we have to do is clean up some of the language, make it more clear, less gray, more black and white. Things haven't worked as maybe the way it was envisioned in the beginning. There are things that do work, but I think there are many parts that are broken that need to be fixed, and we're well aware of it, but we can't piecemeal it either. And so I have to agree with the DA, the controller, my father, who was a former commissioner. Let's put it out to the people. Let the people decide. Let the people decide. This is our government. Let the people decide what they want to do. Build a better charter if that's what you propose, but look at the case law. It's as simple as that. Read the case that Mr. Rabel had mentioned. I've read the case. This was just a few short years ago in 2014 is when this case was adjudicated. Commonwealth Court, had sided with the commissioners. The Court of Common Pleas sided with the commissioners in Lackawanna County. They were wanting to eliminate elected positions up there by ordinance. And you had 2 courts that sided with the commissioner, said the ordinance is legal, then until it went to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, and then it got overturned. And in that ruling is basically just in summary, any structural changes must be done by government study commission. So you only have 2 choices. You either put it up on as an ordinance and you take that chance, to have a challenge legally, or you just do it all at once. Let's fix it. Let's make this government better. I would not be a proponent of going back to 3 commissioners. I would be a proponent personally to reduce the size of council, maybe down to 5 or 7. But I think we have a good foundation here with this charter. Like I stated 2 weeks ago, judicial records, I think, is an area, for instance, that we don't need a clerk of courts. We don't need a prothonotary that are elected. I think those work well in-house. So, you don't need jury commissioners. I think so. You have different areas that are working and functionally that are working very well. But let's put it out to the people. Let the people decide. Let's obviously engage the public, get candidates on the ballot that will run for this office, and we'll decide what's best for Luzerne County going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Urban. Mr. Wilovich.
On the same token, I know we talked about a lot about turning it over to the people. When you turn it over to the people, it's gonna happen. We're gonna get this charter right here. Page by page. 70, I think it said 69 pages. 69 pages. Okay, we approved the 7-member study commission. You build a new charter. You're gonna be voting on all 70 pages at once. You may change 3 things in there that you like. There may be 7 things in there that they're changing that you don't like. Personally, I think it'd be so much better to leave it up to the people to vote on it issue by issue. Forcing somebody to vote on this, just say for instance, if we want to change it, 7 members do this, then the controller, all the controller can do is audit taxes, tax collectors all year long. Is the controller gonna like that? Probably not. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna vote no. Okay, so we bring it back next year. We got another study commission. They change it again. Voters don't like it. What are we gonna do? Bring back another study commission. It's cyclical. It's insanity. I think we need to look at the charter issue by issue. If the courts have an issue, we'll take it up. We have lawyers. We can hire an outside attorney that's experienced in municipal law to get a legal opinion. At the end of the day, we're leaving it up to the voters. The voters can decide. But I would much rather a voter voting a yes or no question on a simple question, not a 70-page document. I think it's clear as day that we need to look at it page by page and not all at once, because we could change it. What happens if we come back with a charter that's 60% efficient? Not 25%. They miss things the first time, and they miss things the second time. I'd rather go through it issue by issue. In my mind, it makes so much more sense, and it's also up to the voters. You want to go back to 7? I mean, if it's legal, we can do it. You want to go back to 7? It's up to all of you. Do you want to go back to 7? Yes or no? Now, if you want to vote on the 70-page document, we're going back to 7. The tax collector's only doing the tax collector audits are only being done by the controller. The election board is made up of 7 council members. You might not like the whole thing. We're not going to keep going back year after year until we get it right. It's going to take too much time, too long. It's a long, complicated process. At the end of the day, if we do submit all these questions and people get upset, then fine, we'll do the study commission, but we need to try. Council's been here 10 years. We passed 1 amendment. 1 was shot down. So they're not always going to say yes to all the amendments. People need to do their research, but it'll be so much easier, question by question. Be so much easier for the voters to understand, because personally, as a voter, I wouldn't want to go read a 70-page document before I went to vote on. I'd rather vote on 1 single issue. That's all that I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Wilovich.
Yeah, I just want to throw my 2 cents in, of course.
Go ahead, Mr. Clark. Sorry.
I think the charter is a wonderful document. It's our county constitution. And I believe that probably 90% of it is great. There is those sections which are flawed. We've run across them over and over. We spent hours and hours and weeks and meetings debating them. Initially, I was all for keeping the charter as it is in-house, addressing changes, until I found out and discovered that structural changes cannot be made in-house here. So if 7 members is better than 11, we can't do that. That can only be done by placing it on the ballot for a study commission. So structural changes that concern me that we can't fix. And that's why I agree with the controller tonight, the district attorney, Mr. Urban, and others who agree that putting it before the people is probably the wise choice. I go back to the first 3 words of the preamble of the United States Constitution are "we the people." The people decide not the legislators. So I think it's a little bit selfish for us to be sitting here deciding the fate of the charter because we're elected and maybe we want to stay where we're at, be reelected. And I think the honest thing to do is put it before the people and let the people decide if a study commission, let's say 7 people, would do a serious study. As Mr. McGinley correctly said a couple of weeks ago at the public meetings, he said that original study commission were regular, ordinary people that did a tremendous or fantastic job. And in my opinion, I don't think there's any reason to think differently about this new committee if it were formed. It's not a foregone conclusion that they're just gonna scrap this whole charter when they hear most of the county, if not all of the county, saying that 80% of it is great. It's not a foregone conclusion that they're just gonna go right over to the 3-commissioner system, which I agree at the time of 12 years ago, needed replacement for obvious many reasons that were stated here tonight. There's another major structural problem with our charter that I have an issue with. Whether I'm sitting here on council tonight or whether it's 10 years from now. The people, rightfully so, and I too voted to ban the 3-commissioner system 11 or 12 years ago and go with the county charter with county council. But in doing so, the people were outraged at what had just happened. They were shocked by all the corruption, the prison terms given to our top officials, judges. And as such, they stripped almost all powers from the commissioners and from county council. I was very surprised to hear when I got on county council a year ago that almost all powers were removed from county council. We have very little power or authority over the county, other than the budgetary items in the budget and expenditures. All of that, most of that power that was stripped from county council and the commissioners has now been placed with one individual, one authoritarian figure called the county manager. And that person now holds all the power. Holds all the power to hire and fire whoever he or she wants in the county. I received hundreds, as all of you did here, hundreds of emails, maybe 1,000, after the election fiasco of November, screaming and yelling at me, calling me names because I don't have the, you know what, to fire these people that caused that problem. We can't fire them. And all they say is, well, then fire the county manager. And as one of the individuals tonight said, Mr. Griffin, I think, that's the most inefficient type of government you could have if every time, every 5 months, you want to fire the county manager and start a whole new nationwide manager search. That is too much power currently in one person's hands, running a county of 1/3 people, 330,000 people. So that needs to be addressed, that needs to be looked at. Am I saying all that power should be going back here? No. And I won't be here forever, but I'm just saying in the long run, the long range plan, that needs to be addressed. I don't see how that could be addressed in-house by this county council. Having said all that, I am in favor of putting it on the ballot for the people. My only concern with that is the May primary coming up is going to be a quiet primary. There's no major races. You might get 20 to 25% voter turnout. And voter turnout only represents the eligible voters. They only represent about 60% of all the adults in the county. So if 24% show up to vote, that represents 12% of the county's adults who will be deciding the future course of a study commission or no study commission. I'm a little concerned that only a small handful of 12% people will be deciding this. I prefer to go on the November ballot. That's just my preference. I don't know if tabling the motion would receive a second or enough votes, but and if it doesn't, fine. We'll just proceed in whatever way council votes. That's how we'll go. I see the advantages of both ways, though. I just wanted to state that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton. Good.
I'll wait
Okay,
until.
but before we go any further, I just wanted to, because I know a couple of council members have brought this up, and I know that a couple of us have asked the Office of Law, what their thought process is on whether council has the ability to even propose these amendments or not. So I know, Mr. Skeen, I don't know if you have anything that you'd like to add about this, or.
I think we'd have to review whatever your change is gonna be, because from what I've been hearing, I haven't been part of any meetings, but what I've been hearing is a lot of changes. So the more changes that you are gonna make, the more structural change that will come. So one change in, for instance, the number of council members might not be as great of a change, you might get through that in a structural argument, compared to adding people to boards, changing.
Mr. Chairman, we can't hear him. Yeah, we can't hear him.
Speak up.
Thanks. So depending on what the changes would be, would depend on how we're gonna be able to answer that. And we still have to watch what structural change will be. And the more that we add on to the ordinance, the greater the likelihood it's gonna have significant structural change as opposed to a process change.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Venus.
Okay, so I just wanted to piggyback a little bit off of what Councilman Thornton said there at the end, because I have heard this, put it to the people, and I have heard this repeatedly, and I do agree with that. This is something that should go to the people, but then what is the urgency of putting it on the primary ballot when you're going to have far more voter participation in November? So it would be my position that let's try the amendments. Let's get an opinion from the Office of Law. If we can't do the amendments, then we go forward with it in November when we have more people who are actually going to participate in the election and could have their say. Again, put it to the people, but get it on immediately. So the best course that I would come up with is, again, we work on the charter amendments. We have had meetings. We're going to try and bring them to all of council tonight. Nothing that went on in those meetings are definite, so this is just to get the ball rolling so we can all talk about what we like, what we dislike. Do we want to do one? Do we want to do two? How do we want to work this? Again, that was the purpose. But to me, the rush to get it on the May primary or the May primary ballot when independent voters, libertarian voters, anybody who's not registered Republican or Democrat don't nominate anybody. So it's very rare that they come out just to vote for a government study commission question. And this gives all of us the opportunity to get our ducks in a row. I said, I feel like we went from the budget to Christmas to New Year's to reshaping the government in 3 weeks, and it has to be done in 3 weeks. And I just do not understand why it has to be done on the primary ballot this quickly when we're going to have less voter participation, less voter turnout. Put it to the people. That's what I heard, and I hear you loud and clear. Well, why not wait until May? Try to do what we can do or until November, I apologize. Try to do what we can do in the meantime. We haven't even gotten an opinion from the Office of Law yet. Let's get the opinion. Could come back to, you can't do this, you can, however it goes, but then we go from there. And this way, we're not rushing through this. And I just feel like for some reason, there's a big sense of urgency here when the best option is November to begin with, just based on the voter turnout. I would also say that I heard some of the members of the public, how they said, make the list. I think that pros and cons, that's a great idea. I know I support the home rule form of government. In what capacity? I talk about the amendments if this doesn't go through, but I propose less council members. So, but still, I don't want to go back to the 3-commissioner form of government. I think there was a great article about this not long ago. As of 2009, we were in debt $466 million. That's almost $500 million. Right now, we've cut that in half. Almost cut that in half. In the 11 years that we've had a new count, that we've had this form of government, we've almost cut that in half. We're scheduled to pay off our debt service by 2030. Imagine that. Debt service. paid off, no debt. That's what the schedule is. These are my concerns about going back, not to mention the transparency issues. I do think, I mean, I'm old enough to remember when, you know, back in those days in the late 2008, 2009, where every day you're reading the paper and you're seeing something new about the issues that's going on at the courthouse. We don't have that anymore. We are heading in the right direction, particularly fiscally. We are paying down our debt. We're en route to pay everything off. And I don't think it's worth the risk without any of us even trying to amend the charter ourselves. Again, if we are not able to do this, we haven't even got an opinion from the Office of Law. If we are not able to do this, I will be leading the charge for November. But why are we so eager to do this now when half the voters aren't even going, you know, they can't participate in this, or they won't participate in this, I should say. If we really want to put it to the people and really want to hear what the people have to say, November is a much better date. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. LaScavitch.
So I think we can all agree that if I was to call Carl 20 years ago on this phone and you'd sit right over there and he answered it, and be like, wow, look at that. I could talk to him right across the room. Let me make it into a little computer. Oh no, Jesus, don't do that. You're ruining it. That's what I'm kind of hearing today. We have a system. We all know it's flawed because some of our biggest fights, we don't get along, believe it or not. I think we do. But some of our biggest fights are where state law contradicts the charter. So we need to fix that. The other bad thing I see, now I'm sitting here for 1 year, and I'm not going to proclaim to be an expert on the charter because I'm not. But I do look at its faults. One of the biggest faults that I see is that one person, being the county manager, should not yield all the power. I don't care if it's corporation, you have a board, right? And they can hire, which we can hire and fire her, but like we said before, we're gonna go through that show every 6 months. It's ridiculous. So I think it's important, and I'll say this openly, I'm in favor personally of a 5-person. I would consider 7, but I would like to see 5 people responsible for the actions of this county with a day-to-day manager below. And I think that kind of system would work well. The other thing too is, I quite honestly, I don't know what the difference is between council person or commissioner. We're all here pretty much doing the same thing, is what they did, right? And I think we can all agree that we could be called commissioners today and people might view us differently, right? Because of the actions of some individuals that gave it a bad name. I think today even some of the judges may be looked at a little differently because of the actions of certain individuals. That doesn't make them all bad. That doesn't make every person sitting here capable of doing the wrong thing. I think for the most part, and I've been around you all long enough that we know we're here to do the best for Luzerne County. And I would like to see this go through. Personally, I don't care if it's in May or November, but what I do know is to take the power away from one individual and put it back in the hands of this board, that's structural change. And I think there's no way that you're going to get past that without putting that question on the ballot. That's all I have to say.
Go ahead.
I agree with a lot of Mr. Thorpe and Mr. Venus said. I do think we should look on the ballot. Citizens to decide, but I don't see the rush doing it right now. I think we get a better representation of the public's opinion if we did wait until November. So for that reason, I won't support it right now, but I would definitely support it.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Go ahead, Ms. McDermott.
We definitely need changes to the charter for the problems, especially with the DA. What we had a problem with whether council could remove the DA. That was a big problem. So we do have other issues with the charter that do need to be changed. I agree with Mr. Venus that I agree with Attorney Venus that we try to do amendments, see if that works. If it doesn't work, then certainly let's try to put this a different way. I do agree that changes need to be made. I do agree that November would be a better election rather than the primary. And a question about it, would the 7 people be elected in the same, because the question would have to go on in the primary, right?
Yeah,
And then the 7 people would be in November.
Elected at the same time.
Oh, okay, so then
That's what it was
that's,
the last time.
that's what I was trying to find out too. So that's worrisome to me that, put the questions going out there and then 7 people. That's worrisome. But again, it does definitely need to go back to the people to decide. But we have to, I believe, try the amendments first.
I agree with a lot of the comments that have been said tonight, and truthfully, I've wrestled with this a lot over the last couple of weeks. I was one of the people, along with Attorney Venus, that recommended some of these charter amendments. And personally, I just feel that it would just be easier, a more streamlined process if, 99% of what we've suggested, maybe there's an issue here or there with, okay, who should sit on this board? What power should we take away from the manager? There's a disagreement about that, but the very first amendment that I think that council, if it was to come back to council, would propose to put on the ballot would be to shrink the size of council. So whether we shrink it from 7 to 5, you could say goodbye to this table or this table or that table. We're going to eliminate several council members because we all agree that 11 is just very cumbersome. And it's funny, actually, I just recently was watching this video on YouTube. It was called Luzerne County Home Rule for Dummies. And it was a video from 2010 when Judge Haggerty was making arguments for home rule before it went on the ballot. And he talked about why there actually were 11 council members proposed. And it talked about how you can have somebody that might not have a lot of political clout get elected, like several of us have in the last few years, so that they can bring their opinions, which are just as important as somebody that might have a little bit more popularity in a county, to the government. So it's harder to control somebody. It's harder to control 6 members of council. It's harder to make 6 phone calls and say, hey, we need you 6 people to vote on this issue. So I think that that's one of the reasons why we do have a council of this size right now. But as we've seen over the last decade or so, that it sort of gets a little we get too in the weeds on some of these things. But at the end of the day, no matter what changes we propose as council, we are sending it back to the people. The people have had an opportunity to speak tonight. We've listened to a lot of your concerns. We're going to take mental notes, of course. I'm going to go back, listen to this video and say, okay, well, what were some of the suggestions that they made as far as charter amendments that we think would work? And when we put them on the ballot, the people will once again have an opportunity to vote. So at every step of the way, the people do have a voice. The people do have an opportunity, whether it comes from 5,000 signatures to get a study commission together, whether we say, okay, we think a study commission is the best idea, or whether we say, here's one amendment that we think all the people seem to agree with, or most of the council seems to agree with. It goes to the people no matter what. So I think that some of us that make these arguments are getting a little bit lost in the weeds saying that council is making these decisions unilaterally. That's not what's happening. And at any time, if you don't like a decision that we make, well, every 2 years you have the opportunity to remove 5 or 6 of us from office, and I know will use that power. So we're happy to oblige when we know that there's an issue that you feel strongly about. So does anybody else have any thoughts on this? Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Not to be redundant to say the same thing over and over again, but I certainly agree exactly with Mr. Venus and Leanne and you had proposed. And I'm thankful for Mr. Morelli to give us a great background about the home rule. But as it stands tonight, I won't be supporting this ordinance moving forward. The logical way I think we should proceed is exactly what Carl said. Let's try to make changes. And I would rely on the Office of Law to say whether or not we can do those changes. And if we can't do those changes that we do need, well, okay, then I'm going to change my mind. But I'm certainly not going to push this forward and support it now for the upcoming election. So, that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. Anybody else?
Mr. Bartlett, excuse me.
Go ahead.
Normally, I probably have too much to say. A lot of good points raised on both sides. But tonight, we're here for the public to offer their comments in the public hearing. We've heard a lot from the public, but we've also heard a lot from council, which is great. But it's time now for the public meeting to be over so we can move forward. Number one, I've been here a
a long time. Are there problems? There's some issues, I believe. Are there workable issues that you can resolve? I believe that also. And I don't think it's necessary to change the whole document to do that. So, I'm not going to support it tonight. I think we have some very good amendments that have been proposed and will be discussed. And depending on what the Office of Law tells us, as far as, are these amendments something we can do? I think then maybe we can come back and revisit this issue at that time. But I'd like to make a motion to adjourn after that.
She wants to talk.
I don't know if I'm able to.
No.
Is it regarding,
Yes.
would you mind making the comment during the public comment session in the voting meeting? You'll be able to make the same comment, whatever it is. All right.
It's first, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Can we move right into the voting agenda then?
I run for a minute.
Go to the bathroom? Yeah, let's take 5 minutes.
A little older.
Sorry, it's okay.
They say that happens.
All right.
With age.
I keep drinking all my water.
It's what I have to look forward to.
Okay, well, we know that.
That's the next meeting.
Greg, missing one point
That makes sense.
I don't know.
It just happens that honest God, I'm not even familiar with you. I just found out from this.
Of course. Kozlowski, how you doing?
I'm nuts, but other than that, I'm all right.
Nice to see you. Thanks for
Hey,
coming.
how long will it be for a public?
Right at the beginning of this next meeting, so you'll be able to speak again if you like. Yep.
No, you should do. Like I was city council. Councilmen are top podium, so it's really hard to hear.
Yeah.
And plus on video.
We have problems with we had microphones in here. Something happened with the speakers before my time that like we don't.
Somebody probably stole it.
Yeah, I don't know what, they used to be here. They used to just be sitting right here, but they weren't working. I don't know what the problem was, but we don't use them anymore. So now people can't hear anything we're saying, which sucks because we get that all the time. We can't hear you, we can't hear you. Some of us are louder than others. I understand. So, thank you. Feel my sugar dropping. I know.
First meeting, I just have a big
Okay,
question.
what's your name, sir? Hi, nice to meet
This is the second round. Yeah.
The ARP. So we're talking during the voting, we are discussing the parameters for the grant. There's like extra parameters that we would like to put on. So depending on what.
That the worst second before that the chair, are they willing to take your input though?
All right, Council, turn your mics back on, please.
51 years, I figure I better help.
All right.
Nobody's asking for your help. You're on the clock.
Yeah.
I got this.
All right. Okay, it is 6:55. I'd like to call this voting session to order. We've already had the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence. Roll call, please, Ms. Lawrence.
Present.
Mr. Liscavige.
Here.
Ms. McDermott. Here. Mr. McGinley.
Present.
Mr. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Perry.
Here.
Ms. Radel.
Here.
Mr. Thornton.
Here.
Mr. Urban.
Here.
Mr. Lovett.
Here.
Mr. Lombardo.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Before we get started, Mr. Skeen, would you like to announce the executive session?
Yes, before, a long time ago, today, we had an executive session to discuss union contracts.
Thank you very much. We have no recognition ceremony or proclamations. Do we have any additions or deletions from the voting session agenda?
Motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, agenda is adopted. We now have public comment on agenda items only. Anybody for public comment on agenda items only? Yeah, Ms. Fasaro, we'll have you go first since you didn't get it yet.
Oh, you know what, she has to, if that's okay, she has, I.
Oh, whatever, yeah, that's fine.
Me outside, she has to leave it.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah, you can go first. What's your name and municipality?
My name is Cindy Murphy and I live in Wilkes-Barre.
Murphy, you said?
Yes,
PHY?
correct.
Thank you.
I'm here to address the 96 million and where it should go, in my opinion. The people of Pennsylvania are struggling. The working people of Pennsylvania, despite the best efforts, are in many cases failing to make ends meet. Many of our elderly are in far worse situations, having to choose between medicine and food, heat and taxes, a medical copay, and running water. These choices no resident of the great state of Pennsylvania should have to make. Yet County Council have an opportunity to offer some real financial relief to its qualifying residents, and it may not happen. Continually increasing costs in everything from basic necessities like groceries to feed our families, gasoline for our vehicles to drive to work every day, natural gas and oil to heat our homes, and exorbitant medical costs have put many Pennsylvanians in an impossible financial position. The hardworking people of this state, as well as our elderly community, whom we learned our work ethic and values from, are the backbone of our great state. And if there's a way for our leaders to offer some financial incentive to help take the edge off of us and allow us to get back to an even keel, then why is this even a question? So I say to County Council, you have a chance to do some real good here. Put aside your political difference and come together for the people who put you in office. These monies are not taking away from anything else. This isn't robbing Peter to pay Paul. These are funds allocated specifically for this purpose. And now you have to do the right thing and see that those who qualify for them get them so that they can get their heads back above water. I am not saying that this is going to fix everything. The economic climate is what it is, but it offers some real relief for us, even if temporary, and will at the same time put more money back into local economies as well. In closing, I hope that our leaders will see that this is not only the right thing to do, it's the only thing to do. Prove to us that you really are for the people and not just for your political party affiliations. Thank you, and God bless Pennsylvania.
Thank you, ma'am. Sorry.
All right, I'll try to make this quick. So I heard a whole different, couple different things as a proposal. Alyssa Fusaro, Luzerne, sorry, PA. Want my zip too. So I really, in the, there's several things. I mean, I think you guys need to get on the same page, and I know that's difficult because in order to get this on the primary ballot, you have to vote on this right away. And I think that, you know, maybe it should have been proposed earlier, maybe you should have discussed it more. I'm not sure, but, you know, I think that Maybe the answer is putting it off until November. I don't know. What I do know is that, you can't amend a charter from what I understand. And I know that would be a legal question for the Office of Law, but, from what I know of county government, you can't just do that. And then I heard somebody that wants to do it question by question, which would be tedious, unbearable for the public to even understand these questions, because I know how they phrase them. And then so changing, because we're talking about major changes here. We're talking about the county manager. We're talking about, top-down government. We're talking about structural changes throughout the entire document. At the same time, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I get that too. And then we're talking about changes to how many members. As a citizen, all I can say is, just from our admin code, looking at our admin code, which is a completely separate, different thing, I see flaws constantly where it's the state law says one thing and the admin code says a completely different thing. As I mentioned in an email to you earlier, the Luzerne County Board of Election has become completely powerless. Every single thing has been taken away from us. Every single power, the power to hire, the power to, purchase equipment, election equipment, the power to at anything, to set policy and procedure for the Bureau. And I, as mentioned in that email, and this is for public consumption, the fact that we no longer, the Bureau unilaterally decided to go ahead and cure early, let people know early, advise people early of the right to cure, just 2 seconds more, or that their ballot needed to be cured. They decided to do that without the board, without our vote. And we was told by the Office of Law that that was okay. This is a problem. This is a problem. We're constantly butting heads. It needs to be fixed. And that's all I'm saying. Please fix it.
Thank you, Mr. Sorrow.
There's no certain order, is there?
I have papers, and then I'll call on everybody else. Thank you. Vivian Kreidler Messina.
Hi, my name is Vivian Kreidler Messina. I'm from Nescapeck. I want to talk about the ARP distribution. Believe me, I understand, but it's important that
No,
this, isn't that item 5 or 6?
Yeah, the distribution of the ARP funds is not on the agenda. If you want to talk about the parameters that we're setting tonight, you can.
What do you mean?
The procedures.
The procedure. We're voting on the procedure tonight. We're not actually voting on the.
Well, this is based, I would assume this would probably be part of it because
All right, you can go
I
ahead.
don't know.
Go
I
ahead with your
mean,
comment. That's okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know. Okay.
I apologize.
It's important that all branches of government work together to meet the needs of the citizens. The services and the county government provides to our residents are very critical to their lives. Does the councilman remember saying this about this back in 2020? A special voting settings session. Let me refresh your memory. The statement was made by Mr. McGinley, and he stated that the citizens of this county are important. If you care much about the citizens of Luzerne County, then let's explain why the administration discourages council from directly distributing funds to households and individual businesses. An ordinance before council is approved. An ordinance before council to approve a homestead exclusion of 48,500 to assessed properties for 2020, 21, and for the Office of Treasury to distribute the funds to eligible property owners from the line item. There was evidently a proposal put back in 2021. It was tabled. It never came back around because the new council took over. So that was never looked at. $8 million was distributed already out of the money. Now you just want to look to give 96 million to businesses. That what they're asking this money for one, I think that people have a right to know who they are, what they're asking this money for. Different stories going around are telling me by looking at the information from the state, the final law is half of these people don't even qualify. You just went from, let me finish. I don't want to get off. The ordinance was tabled. In an email I received from council members, the words to me were, would you prefer that the money be used on eligible county projects, which will prevent us from raising taxes for potentially several years? Or would you prefer the $600 rebate and require taxes to increase the upcoming year, meaning 2013? So far, $8 million went to county projects and our taxes went up. You raised them anyway, after you asked that question. According to the time, is my time up?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you need to look at where you're putting this money because you're looking at a possible lawsuit, a countywide lawsuit from the residents before distributing that. And the money doesn't have to be allocated until 2024. So we don't need to rush in to give out this
Thank you,
money.
ma'am. Mr. Morelli?
Good evening, everyone. Rick Morelli from Sugarloaf. I'm going to talk a little bit fast. I have a couple things I have to follow up with from before. First of all, I'm hearing a lot about the public and go give it back to the people. I've always respected the people. With all due respect, you don't see a lot of people here at this meeting. There's over 300,000 people in Luzerne County. Not a lot of people come to county council meetings. If you put a commission together, there'll only be about 5 or 6 people come to those meetings. Trust me, I know it. So don't be like, oh, well, let's give it back to the people. If you do it, let's do it every 5 years. Let's try that. Because at the end of the day, no matter what changes you make, no matter what new charter you make, you're not going to like it. It's not going to be perfect. So let's just keep changing the government and throw it back to the people. When all the respect, and you said it great, do you think they're going to read another 60-page document? Well, we made the change. We made a huge change. You want to keep making little changes, go ahead. You can't keep making charter changes every 5 years, okay? It's not going to work. So let's look at, what's also could happen is we could go backwards. Let's have meetings in the afternoon like they used to do it. Let's have the row offices. No one talked about it. They keep talking about 3 commissioners. Let's give row offices all the money they want, put up terms, do all this stuff. Let me go back to Mr. Urban. You think this debt didn't come down because of the reassessment. It came down because council didn't borrow money to pay for the budget, and they did it. That's why we are now have an A-rated debt rating right here now. So let's look at no matter what changes, again, Mr. Griffith, you were on it, you did it, but you also didn't vote for it. Again, it goes back to my point. No one's going to agree to everything. You guys have to understand your role. Mr. Liskevich, with all due respect, let me answer your question. In this charter, there's 3 different forms of government. People have to understand that. Executive branch, judicial branch, and legislative. We separated the powers, okay? So council is not like the commissioners anymore. We took that power away. We took the power away from elected officials to make those decisions. This government is no different than the local hospital down here. You have a board of directors down there. They have a CEO. Board of directors don't go out and make day-to-day decisions. They look over and they oversee everything. This government is set up just like a business. You have a CEO that's professional and has those specific things that you need. You hire a board of directors, which is you, looks over it. Again, it's tough with 11 people, but there's checks and balances to make sure that only a small portion of people don't make the foolish decisions that hurt the public out there. Guys, listen, if you keep going back and forth and saying, let's give it to the people, that's the easy way out. You are elected to make decisions. If you want to give it to the people, then guess what? Every time you have a tax increase, put it out there and ask the public if they want a tax increase, and let's see how that goes. Let's then put it back to the public, okay? You were elected to make decisions. You have roles here. Understand this charter. Read it. If you don't, read it and understand your roles, okay? It works. Trust me, it works. Don't be fooled by some people who have certain agendas and a lot of people who, quite honestly, just don't understand the charter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morelli. Mr. Raybo?
First of all, on agenda item number 1 for the whole house repair program, I wholeheartedly ask for council to support it because it goes to disabled residents in our county. and those, who have a hard time affording to make whole home repairs. I wholeheartedly support it, and I hope council does as well. Now, to finish my comment on the home rule question before you, I would also like to add, as far as another case law ruling, Commonwealth Court case, Vincent Rosado versus John Slifko, filed October 10th, 2014. It was submitted to the Commonwealth Court September 26th of 2014. The judges affirmed the earlier state Supreme Court ruling that, and this was a different scenario because this one was initiated by citizen petition to amend their city charter by individual amendments, and they were structural changes. So the Commonwealth Court judges affirmed the state Supreme Court ruling earlier on, saying that citizens, even if the citizens circulate a petition, they cannot make structural changes by individual ordinance. It has to be through a government study commission. So just, Mr. Solicitor, if you want to take that, Rosado versus Slifko, Commonwealth Court case 2014.
Can you spell it, Mr. Rabo?
If that doesn't take away my time, Slifko, I believe. Let me see.
You wait till the end.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. So in conclusion, I'd like to also say our country, the United States, when it was founded after the Revolutionary War, when their first charter was created, the Articles of Confederation, I'd just like to remind everybody, American History 101, the Articles of Confederation did not work. That first charter failed because the Congress could not initiate commerce between states. And also it could not pay to defend itself from invasions from foreign armies. So therefore, the founders had to go back to the Constitutional Convention, back to the drawing board. And they said, well, the Articles of Confederation can't work. So we have to go back, and therefore what resulted from that is what we see for 243 years, the Constitution. Ben Franklin, God rest his soul, they had to drag him out of retirement, 73 years old, to bring him back into the Constitutional Convention to have him, mentor the Second Constitutional Convention. So please, I mean, give it I agree. There needs to be no charter changes as far as as far as every year or every 5 years. But I think what needs to happen is let's get it done at one time and one time only. Let's get it right like our founding fathers did. And then let's move on. Thank you,
Mr. Rego. Controller Griffith.
And I will say, to Mr. Morelli's point, as well as Mr. Rabel's, I tend to agree. We changed the charter. We're never going to get a charter we like in total. There's always going to be an issue with something in the charter, no question about it. Do we throw the baby out with the bathwater, or do we fix it individually? That's a choice that the council has to make, and I get it. But we've been having these problems for the past 5 or 6 years. Some of the members of council have been sitting here for the past 3 and are running for election. I haven't seen one, not one, and I was on council, I haven't seen one charter amendment come from anybody on this council in the last 5 years, not one, except the ones that I drafted and they got dismissed, and maybe one that Mr. Urban drafted and it got dismissed. But I'm saying if we have issues as council members with the charter, fix them. To Mr. Swetz's point, if you find a problem, let's get a solution and fix it. Let's not just keep, as Ron Knapp says, kick the can down the road, because eventually you keep kicking it and there's not going to be a can anymore. You need to stop that and fix the problem. These charter problems have been here since the charter's been drafted. We had to wait 5 years to fix those problems. But after that 5-year period, we had the opportunity to fix it. And we've done nothing as council. And we've done nothing as a government. So now we go to drastic actions to put a charter amendment on, and we're told, well, let's just wait until November. We were told by the Office of Law, November, you can't put a question on the ballot because it's a lame duck council. So what are you going to do for that? You can't put a question on this November. You cannot, according to the Office of Law, because this is a lame duck council this year. The Office of Law has ruled that you cannot put a question on the ballot to change the charter. So now you have to wait until next year. And now you have to wait till next November or next May, whichever one you want to change. Again, we just procrastinate this problem and it gets festering and festering until you end up with a big boil that won't go away. We need to fix these problems. And some of them can be fixed. I agree with everybody that spoke. Some of them are not bad problems. They can simply be fixed. Just put the question on the ballot and fix it. Mr. Perry's been on council ever since 8 years. We haven't seen one amendment. Nobody from council has brought one amendment, not one. And when I did bring one, it was voted down by the Office of Law, said you can't make a structural change to the Office of Law. Okay, but that was a problem that everybody on council had. So just fix these problems that we need to do. The legislature does it. We have a question coming up on the ballot from the state in May to change the constitution of this Commonwealth. And they do it all the time. Why can't we do it here as council? But if we're not going to do that, fine, then get a study commission together so they could do it. That's all we're asking. That's all I'm asking, is have a study commission. If that's the end result, have a study commission come and bring it and let them do it. If we can't do it as council, let them do it. But the commitment from this council needs to, if you're saying, let's wait, but let's have a commitment from council that says, let's wait. If you don't bring any commitments, you won't run for office again. Let's have that commitment from everybody who's saying, let's wait. You know, you're going to run for office. If you don't bring a commitment to fix this charter, don't run again. Make that commitment to the people.
Mr. Knapp?
Ron Knapp from Nanny Coke. I just want to echo, that's 100% accurate what Walter Griffith says. Let's amend, let's fix, you know, your hands are twisted behind, or your arms twisted behind your back at this point. You know, this is what it takes to get it accomplished. I would say personally amend or table this motion to adopt an ordinance placing a government study commission and try to amend, change things going forward. If you don't make changes like council's supposed to make our government work more properly, well then, as he stated, you shouldn't be voted back into office. That's the bottom line. You should do your job, but not to say your job is easy. Your job is not easy. So I would say that this should take some time, but let's try to change it inside council by amending. Okay, the second thing I wanted to mention is regards to the ARP funding, and it is about distribution of it and the rule regulations associated with it. It's during the work session of December 6th, 20 minutes was devoted to the administration of ARP funds. Council discussed the need to get the funds out to the needy. The discussion also revealed that 14% or 14.6% fall in the category of a poverty level. I got to tell you, this has got to be growing with the cost of energy. Elderly are, again, as this elderly person mentioned earlier, having to choose between taking medication to keep their health or paying the electric or fuel bill. One councilman stated that the council as a whole has been sitting on the funds for a long time. The councilman also suggested he would like to see the funds to be distributed before the worst of winter was over. Well, look at it. We're here going into February. Winters in the northeastern Pennsylvania starts in November. So we're nearly halfway through winter. And one councilman suggested funding someone to administer a plan, possibly the CEO. One councilman asked if booth management consultant were asked about the administration of funds through CEO. I suspect that that's what this motion is regarding, the policies. The main reason for the funds is because the lost revenue sustained because of coronavirus for organizations, business and nonprofits and homeowners. I wanted to add one thing. The email I sent out last council meeting, I wanted to change it to either or amend a resolution regarding the fee to cease and desist the required payment and have ARP funds pay it.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp.
Now, I would like to see if a booth would would agree with that.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience for public comment? Mr. Kadlubowski, can you please spell your last name for the clerk, if you don't mind?
Sure. Kadluboski. I'll be real brief. I hope you make the right decision. I think you've heard enough from some intelligent people, a lot smarter than me. And I only want to say this. When Mr. Venus, when you said how the debt went down, and you're right, and probably with this council, you're right, it did go down. But don't forget this. It was the taxpayers who ended up paying for the mess that we were left with. It was the taxpayers. And don't forget that. So whatever decision you're going to make. And I'm going to leave now. And I want to assure you, I don't have my tow truck. So you'll all be going home in your own automobiles. Nice talking. Thanks for the can.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else for public comment that's in the room? Anybody else? Anybody on the Zoom?
No,
Your drivers.
No
signs, Okay. All right, hearing no public comment. Motion to approve the minutes of the January 10th. All in favor? Opposed? No. All right, minutes are approved. First agenda item, motion to adopt the resolution of council requesting a whole home repairs program grant from the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development. So moved. I believe Mr. Venus was first and Mr. Wilovich was second. Roll call, please, Ms. Lawrence. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Any discussion?
No, I was just gonna say, we received a lot of feedback from the public in recent months about, as we did tonight, and rightfully so, about how many people are hurting up the county. Just want to read to you, in the pages buried in the agenda tonight, this 3.2 million, the whole home repairs program is used to address habitability and safety concerns and provide measures to improve energy and water efficiency and make units accessible for individuals with disabilities throughout Luzerne County. So it is a great effort going forward tonight. I can't imagine anybody who would vote against this. And 3.2 million is a sizable chunk of change going out to help people in need in the county. Thank you.
Just as an aside to that, I actually just recommended this program to somebody the other day who had contacted me regarding their home being temporarily condemned. And I actually had said that this program is coming down the pike. Take a look at it and probably you'll qualify for it. So this is a great program and I'm very glad to see that we're going to be voting on it tonight. Any other comments? Roll call, Ms. Lawrence.
Mr. Venus?
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch?
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo?
Yes.
Ms. McDermott? Yes. Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Ms. Radel?
Yes.
Mr. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Willoughby?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Motion to adopt the resolution designating the county manager, director of operations, and/or the county engineer as authorized signatory for execution of documents, notices, required exhibits, and management for multimodal transportation grant reimbursement agreements.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Radel, second by Mr. Ford.
I have a motion for amendment. I'd like
Go
to
ahead.
take the firm of county engineer out of there because county engineer is not responsible for anything with budget. The county manager and the director of operations had that responsibility. We had an issue several years ago where the county manager got us into an issue about going forward with the project that was not approved by the county manager, and there had to be some changes made. So I'm respectfully asking that the county engineer be removed as one of the signatures.
There's a motion on that. I'll second it.
And a question on that. I just understand what you're saying. And maybe Mr. Sweats could expand on this. If his name's off, then there are only two people, I believe, on there as authorized signers. And does all paperwork require two signatures or does one signature suffice?
I think for most, one signature suffices. There are maybe some that is two, but
Because if someone was not available, you only have one person here to sign, right?
most of them, as far as I
Most are one signature required.
Mr. Thornton, I checked that out, and one signature seems to be the requirement.
Okay.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the amendment? Roll call, Ms. Lawrence.
Mr. LaScavitch?
Yes.
Ms. McDermott? Yes. Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Ms. Radel?
Yes.
Mr. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Venus?
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo?
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right, back to the original motion. There's a first and a second. All right, roll call, Ms. Lawrence.
Ms. McDermott? Yes. Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Ms. Radel?
Yes.
Mr. Thornton?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Venus?
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch?
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Motion to adopt a resolution approving a contract with Inservco Insurance Services Incorporated as third-party administrator for Luzerne County's workers' compensation insurance for fiscal years 2023 to 2025. Is there a motion? Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to amend that to Excalibur.
And I would second that.
On the question.
Okay, all right, there needs to be a motion and a second for the original item, and then
Okay.
we can amend.
I'll make the motion.
All right, Ms. Radel made a motion,
Second.
Mr. Venus second, and now on to the question. Go ahead, if anybody has any.
I'll make the
Go
motion
ahead.
Excalibur.
One second, Ms. Radel, Mr.
Sure.
Lovich, go ahead.
Okay, so in this agreement, if we do change the name, it says, subject to the terms and conditions of the attached contract, which would be for Inservco, would that change?
I believe that we'll have to,
So would it change with the name change, or would it have to be a different resolution?
I'll defer to Harry on that.
probably have to be a different resolution, I'd
Yeah,
say,
we'd
because
have
we
to
don't
have
have
a
the
new
contract in front of
resolution.
us.
That includes the new.
Because it's attached to these
company,
contracts.
And it has that contract. That contract, there wasn't any anticipation when this was produced to have another party, so we'd have to have that party's contract attached.
Which we don't have.
No. Well, we have, it just wasn't submitted in the package.
You know, well, we don't have it to see here.
Yeah, we don't have it, the public hasn't had a chance to view it, I don't think, correct?
So what we can.
We table it.
No, we voted up or down.
Vote up or down.
Yeah, we can just vote it up or down, have a resolution, or we can just,
Vote it down.
okay, all right,
We can withdraw. the
we'll just,
motion.
is it, would anybody like to withdraw their motion for it then?
If we withdraw the motion, just go away.
It'll, if we withdraw the motion, it'll die.
It'll just die on the floor.
Yeah,
I'll withdraw my,
okay, and you withdraw your second, Mr. Venus? So, all right, hearing no other motions, the item will die for lack of a motion.
That
Okay.
doesn't give you any direction going forward.
It does not.
Well, then somebody should make a motion that we're gonna have a no, I don't know, we can do that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
at our last meeting, sorry.
Go
it-
ahead,
it's-
go ahead, Ms. Radel.
At our last meeting, when this is on the work session, we did give instruction to have both contracts and resolutions prepared. So while we're not taking official action to have that one, we did do that at the work session. It was part of our discussion that we would like to see a resolution and the contract for Excalibur. And that hasn't been provided to us yet. So I think that that should be provided for the next meeting based on the conversation we had in executive, or not an executive session, at the last work session.
And we did have extensive discussion on Excalibur.
We
Yeah.
Correct.
And Ms. Radl's correct. We asked to have the two resolutions.
Okay. Okay, so, but the reason for the second one not being here is because we didn't have a copy of the contract, I assume. Is that,
I don't,
okay.
What was that? The Cora that had the contracts? I think she's the one who's.
We'll be able to get.
Yeah, we can just get it for the next meeting, if that's okay.
Okay.
Okay, are we okay to move on then? Okay, all right, motion to adopt the resolution for the County of Luzerne agreement to implement Act 57 of 2022.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second,
Any discussion? Roll call, Ms. Lawrence?
Mr. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton.
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
Yes.
Mr. Lovett.
Yes.
Mr. Venus.
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Mr. McDermott. Yes. Mr. Lombardo.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Number 5, motion to adopt an ordinance placing a government study commission question on the May 16th, 2023 primary municipal election ballot and designating the number of members to serve on said commission.
So moved.
Second.
Another question.
Go ahead.
This is new information I heard just now from Mr. Controller. That for whatever reason, I don't know why, but we can't put this question on a November ballot, whether it be this November, next November. So that means a question of this magnitude is required to be put on a very small turnout vote. Any May at all. I can't believe that would be.
Mr. Thornton,
Yeah,
we're not on lame duck council until after the November election.
right.
Yeah, Mr. Skeen or Ms. Lipsansky, if you want to expound on that at all, if you have any. I thought she was, I thought I saw her before. No, okay, if she's gone, then.
I don't think there's any problem with us voting on it, having it being on the November ballot.
Any other,
Well, before, I'm gonna allow, like you said, any other comment, but before you move on to the vote, but I have one last word.
yeah, absolutely.
I've said all I had to say. I have nothing additional.
I just have one thing to say.
Go ahead,
That
Mr. Leskevich.
if for sure that's gospel come November, that we're not gonna get railroaded because I will lose my mind. Just saying.
Okay,
So,
go ahead, Mr. Urban.
I was gonna say too, you know, if you have the old proverb from 1562 that says no time like the present, but there is a comma right after the word present. 1,000 unforeseen circumstances may interrupt you at a future time. So quite honestly, you know, and there's no time like the present to do this. I don't believe the argument and the adage of let's just kick the can down the road another 7 months and live with this deficient or you know, like sort of charter with all its flaws for another 7 months, you know, when we could be doing the work and the people could actually be voted on in this primary. I think that would actually spawn some extra turnout during the primary. And you know, you're going to have turnout anyway, because there are going to be 6 council members up for reelection. You're going to have a primary on the Republican and Democratic side. This will bring out independents and third party individuals to be able to come out and vote during the primary. So they'll be able to vote on at least 7 members of a government study commission. And let those 7 members then get to work to fix our charter and to fix this government. That's all pretty much I have to say at this point in time. I think we know where it's going to go, I think, unfortunately, but I'm going to hold my colleagues to it. If you don't do it, guess what? I'm going to campaign against you too, very hard. And I'm friends with some of them.
Mr. Skeen, go ahead.
Yeah, right now, the ordinance that's been, that we debated this evening in public, and that is up for a vote now, states it's for November 16th, 2023. So I don't know if somebody else is going to bring up a May 16th. So unless somebody is going to have more time for an ordinance to be in November, if this passes, the way it's written, it's for May, not November.
Go ahead, Mr.
That is what you're proposing.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's continuity too. I mean, the petitions are coming out next month. I mean, I think that it's fair to let everybody petition during the primary and versus having another set of petitions, creating additional work for the Bureau in the fall to get more candidates on the ballot at that time, you know, more things that could be screwed up in an election process. You know, but that's ultimately all of yours, all of our collective choice here tonight. I think you got to look at the process. I mean, are you going to trust in the election bureau to get it right too, to get 14 candidates or as many candidates on the ballot in November, besides, you know, having all the other potential, you know, local issues, because it is a local election year too. So there's going to be other municipal races besides our own. It is an odd year, so, I think you're better off doing it in the primary and then getting it over with, done. It's then off the ballot. Those members of the GSC can get to work. They'll have a jump on it, and then, 12 to 18 months from now, they'll deliver a product to the people, and the people can vote on that product up or down later on, whatever they choose. It's not what we're choosing, it's what they choose. And we'll have, whoever's, if we don't decide, or any one of us don't decide to run for that GSC, the people decide to run, everybody will be able to participate in their public meeting and give their thoughts on what needs to be changed here, in this government. So think about it, hard, because don't forget, you got a bureau in the way that screwed up 2 years worth of elections so far. Are they going to get it right in the fall?
Ms. McDermott?
I just wanted to mention maybe about the timing. So with these amendments that we're going to discuss tonight, would they make it to the primary?
Not likely.
No.
Very, very not.
No, they would, yeah.
And we don't even have an opinion yet. from the opposite.
And we also would like to bring, sorry to cut you off, we want to bring the amendments to the full council so that they have an opportunity to vet them and not just see what we, said to the newspaper about them, because we didn't actually share them with all 11 members of council
So
yet.
we do, we have to discuss that and then vote on it. It's not going to make the primary, just a question of timing, because we're saying if we would put this on the general election, how would that work? Would we have competing ideas, or is it like, are we definitely going to put the amendments on the November ballot, even though we're saying, let's wait to do the government study commission in November?
Well, if we can make meaningful change with the amendments, see, I don't want to get stuck in a position where we do nothing. So if we can't get through the amendments, then yes, I would move for that government study.
So we're going to
commission.
give the amendments a little bit of
I
time.
mean, and we have time to work on them now. We have some time to get an opinion and go forward with it. But, at this point, I think we work on them. If we can't get them through for whatever reason, then we turn to the government study commission. I think that's.
Mr. Skeen, do you know what the deadline is for something to go on the ballot for November? Do you remember what
I'm
date?
just writing you know that we're gonna come up with a new schedule.
Okay,
for that.
Mr. Lombardo,
go ahead,
I'd
Ms.
like to-
Radel.
I'd like to call the question. We discussed this thoroughly during the public hearing
Okay.
and we're getting off
All right.
topic.
Okay, all right, thank you, Ms. Radel.
Before we vote though,
Okay, go.
say one last thing.
She called the question, so,
I want to make a motion to table.
okay, a motion to table?
Because I'm all,
Motion to table, there's no discussion.
okay, just no
Okay.
table.
Okay.
Table an ordinance.
Okay,
No discussion.
all right.
Okay.
Okay.
Roll call.
Roll
You
call.
can't table
Wait,
board-
is there a second on that motion? Oh, no, I'm sorry, okay, all right, roll call, Ms. Lawrence, on the motion to table.
No, we can't table.
Can't table
Okay.
ordinance.
This is on the vote on the
Okay.
ordinance.
I apologize.
This is voting for this ordinance, yes or no?
To be,
As it's
to be
presented.
made primary.
Yes,
ballot.
okay, this is the vote on the ordinance as presented.
Mr.
Roll
Mitchell,
call.
No.
Mr. Perry,
No.
Ms. Radel,
No,
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
Yes.
Mr. Wilovich.
No.
Mr. Venus.
No.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Ms. McDermott. No. Mr. McGinley,
No.
Mr. Lombardo.
No,
3 yes. 8 no. Failed.
See what happens.
thank you. Number 6, motions regarding policies and procedures for the assessment and evaluation of the Arpa fund distribution. We're going to take this motion by motion. First we need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that even if we have numerous submissions, only one submission per applicant.
Entity or.
Well, we need a motion and a second on the item.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Wilovich, second by Mr. Venus. On the discussion.
Well,
Hold on.
Okay,
No.
all right. And then go ahead, Mr. McGinley.
again, I would like to make a motion that only one application be allowed to be submitted per applicant.
second,
Be allowed to be accepted.
Right.
On the question. If it's filed under the same name but under different businesses, is that going to be affected? They may fall under different business.
In my mind, it's the same applicant would have the same name. I refer to the Office of Law.
I have to do that. I don't understand. The question is to say two pizza places applied and they have the same owner. Or is it based on two pizza places, the same name of different owner?
I don't know that we have such an example. I don't know if that.
But that, I'm just saying that would be an example. like,
I
how
think
we
there
would
might
do
be a
it.
couple. There's a couple in there that are different organizations that have the same submitter, but nothing that we don't know for, what the specific one was. Can't remember, but
I think Mr. McGinley's motion that would be, one of the applicants submitted by a party is to be accepted.
One application per applicant.
That's the question, what does applicant mean?
My mind means the same name. I don't know.
Does it mean business or like what if a person's a CEO of two different organizations and they both
They're
apply?
different CEOs and they're still owned by the same person.
Well, and we have to change that motion, one application per
owner
or applicant, whether it be multiple applicants under the same name or ownership.
Ms. Booth. Ms. Booth, do you have any guidance for us on this?
Actually, we can clarify the type of organization by we ask questions specific to like their EIN number or their SAM registration. So there's ways to identify duplicate organizations, and we don't do it by name. Because but we use their identifying information to kind of distinguish. Now, if they're within, I'm sorry.
I'm fine with that.
EIN number? Okay.
Or they don't always have an EIN number because some of them are municipalities and things of that nature. So it's their whatever identifying information.
Per identifying information for the application.
Okay.
Per organization, maybe?
Per identifying.
Oh, I think you need.
Yeah.
I think you need a little more specific.
All right, I would just say per identifying number, meaning
Yeah.
SAM. or
Identifying
EIN.
information.
Information.
Because you have the municipalities that she's.
Okay, yeah, identifying information.
And can I
Go ahead,
just
Ms.
want to add that it's for the highest score too. So it's not just the duplicate application, but the the application with the highest score will be awarded. Because some of them have applications where the scorings are very material. So it'll be the highest score of the duplicate of the application of the applicant. For whatever multiple application.
There's no applications that are duplicates that had the same score. are
No.
there, as far as you know?
No.
Okay, just to
No.
make sure. Just to make sure. Okay,
No.
don't want to run into that problem. Okay. are
Yeah, we
okay
want the
with that?
highest scored application to be.
Okay, singular applicant based on identifying information and highest score. If
Highest
it's-
score.
And highest score. Okay, as an amendment. We also need to change, okay, all right, we'll start with that amendment. Okay, so is there there's a motion, Mr. McGinley, a second by,
I seconded it. I'll keep my second.
I'm sorry.
by Kendra, okay, by Ms. Radel. All right, Ms. Radel seconded, roll call, Ms. Lawrence.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
Yes.
Mr. Willoughby.
Yes.
Mr. Venus.
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Mr. McDermott.
Yes.
Mr. McGinley.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo.
Yes,
Unanimous.
okay. Any other amendments?
I'd like to bring up something that I read and heard about just this week. I'd like to make an amendment to add language to this, which reflects the latest changes made in December of the budget by the U.S. Treasury, where they added language, and they refer to it as ARPA Flex, ARPA Flex. And they added language where they added additional uses of these monies, one being for emergency services, but one being for road projects, repair or replacement of roads. And I would like us to make sure we consider all that before we go ahead with the awarding of all the money. And I would appreciate if Ms. Booth could
Yeah.
look into that, not tonight, but if you want to comment tonight, fine. I'll look into that for us, so we have that information.
The only thing I would have you keep in mind is that the NOFO went out to the public. The public submitted applications based on those requirements. So it's almost like you would need to start the process pretty much over. If you're gonna add eligibility that wasn't available at the time that the applicants submitted responded to it. That's just my caution. Because sorry, go ahead, right ahead.
Sorry, we do have the extra, there's still more money left over, right? That's not allocated.
Exactly. And you have some
Just
internal,
those projects.
yes, and you have some internal projects where that may benefit you as far as road and falling in that eligibility category versus being in the ineligible category. So that stays out of your revenue loss. So it definitely will help you. But for this 60 million pot, I would just caution you that you've already put out to the public what the parameters are. They submitted the applications in response. We've evaluated them based on that criteria. So if you throw that in, it may just change, but you have other monies and you have internal projects that could potentially benefit from that flexibility.
So Ms. Booth, we could use up to 10 million, is that correct? For that
Which
money
10
that's
million?
on that ARPA flex, it says 30% or up to 10 million, I believe.
I'm gonna, I want to be careful because there's a couple of ARPA flexes. One has to do with healthcare spending. It's several things. So let me look at that. Because I don't see it on the track. I'll look into that if I could, before I
Yeah,
send.
the final verbiage is coming in February, they said.
Okay. So like I said, they don't publish, I guess you get a lot of what we call comments and feedback, and this is ever-changing regulations. I think I've said that over and over again, but usually it helps you, it doesn't hurt you. So they're trying to make it more flexible as opposed to less. And the only other cautionary tale is there's also rumors that potentially they're gonna, if you're not spending it, the government is looking at recovering or recapturing funds. So that's another rumor, or that's other, whispers and kind of murmurs. So time is of the essence. I'm just going to be very honest with you. There's a clear agenda to take into consideration. And remember, they did lower it by it's a nominal amount, maybe like 50 million in September 2022. So keep that in mind.
And as far as the timing, you're correct. It's very important. We have 120 miles of roads. Timing is of no issue that need repair right now. Secondly, U.S. Treasury did put out the parameters of no more than $10 million or 30% of your ARPA award can be designated for these extra purposes and uses. So we just need to all be aware of exactly what those are before we jump the gun. Now, municipalities all around the country are running with this. And because the federal government changed the final ruling on the final rule of last February. They did. So I don't think they would do that unless if it meant that the municipalities and the various governments around the country were going to be violating and creating lawsuits for themselves, or they wouldn't have put it out there. They wouldn't have made these changes. So there are several uses allowed. I think it's important that everybody here get the exact language. It was in late December when the U.S. Treasury made this determination. So it's called ARPA Flex. Go home, Google it, read about it, but it's something we should consider.
Now that funding source, is that different than lost revenue?
Sounds like
Yes.
it is.
So we have 8.9 million or something in lost revenue.
Right.
So we potentially got another possibility of $10 million that would have to flex.
They're not going to give us 10 million. You accuse.
No, but in our pot of money that.
10 million of our pot of money could be used for road.
Or 30%.
Or 30%, whichever is more.
As of right
So
now,
we could actually use 30%.
30% of what's left, or 30% of the
Well,
total grant.
if we wanted to hold off, we could use 33 million for infrastructure in this county.
I think just
How
to
much
clarify.
how much
one-
is it unallocated? About 70?
Yeah, I think it's around, Ms. Booth has slides. I don't want to hold it, again, I've said it 100 times in a short meeting, but she has slides. I think it's around 17 or 18 million. But to Mr. Scavenger's point, we don't have 33, even though we haven't given all the money out, if we allocate 60 million and we do the internal project, we have about 17 or 18 million.
Yeah, I was just expressing it.
You could do more than 10.
But the other thing too is I don't think we have to be threatened by the government how fast we move on this money because they gave us timelines and it's 2024. So we're nowhere near that yet. So I don't like the idea that we got to spend it tomorrow.
And let's
or
put
we're
it,
losing it.
let's put it this way. If we don't use it for the road repair, eventually, people's taxes are gonna go up in this county to fix the roads. There's no two ways to skin a cat. There's no magical pill here where we're gonna get millions of dollars to fix the county roads. This is the answer right here. This changed by the federal government. And they changed the rule because they got so much pushback nationwide from counties like us. And that's why they added that in.
I've not heard that.
Over there.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Ms. McDermott, go ahead.
Ms. Booth, this is Leanne McDermott. I guess if you have a presentation, again, maybe we should let you go forward with
Yeah.
that, but if we had last, discussion, we had 75 applications at approximately 60 million. So if some of those were cut, were less than 60 million, or are we still?
Oh,
using
so
that
this
60
is, I'm assuming you all can see our slides. I put them.
Yes.
No, not yet.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, I apologize.
Okay.
Your smiling face has been up there for 3 hours.
So just really quickly, and I'll make this quick. So the numbers are ever, they kind of
Ms. Booth,
fluctuate.
just 1 second, we have to get IT. We need to get IT to get the screen up
So you
for
can share a
us.
screen so we can see it.
Mr. Governor, I think the idea behind it was 75. If somebody's not gonna get 2 or 3 bites of the apple out of the 75.
But that number could change.
Yeah, it could. But 60 million was what we agreed to.
Yeah.
So that's your,
It'll end up being a little bit less.
Some don't qualify to that bump of the top.
yeah.
So it's just gonna be.
Huh? No, I did not. I'm just saying, that's my assumption.
As a cap, so then like when everyone's eligible, that doesn't put you over 60. So you might end up at 60 million and a little bit less. You move up whoever's not, take out who's not eligible, and we wouldn't put 60 as a cap. And then whatever the difference is would fall to the unassigned.
Yeah. Hold on, Ms. Booth, we apologize.
No worries. They're not.
1 second, Mr. Knapp. We're just trying to get the IT situation figured out. We have,
For the audience, do you have that for projecting onto the screen?
They don't have that.
I don't think that,
projected.
yeah, we don't have that.
I'm not saying tonight.
I understand what you're saying, but we don't have that projected. When we went to this format.
Like the way I do it.
Wait, as long as you say, change what I'm saying is the future.
We need some money to do that.
There's nothing.
5 minutes.
No, we did have the projector, but it was not compatibility. What's going on here?
Mr. Lombardo, for the record, I want to withdraw my amendment
Okay,
because we don't want to change the whole process tonight. What we
Okay.
have. But.
and we could always add this,
Right.
in another time, once we get a little bit more.
And I would-
information.
And I would just caution to make sure that that it's actually adopted by the Treasury. I am in every subscription, every program related to the CLFRF. I am in every regular, and that has not, if it's official, it's not official yet until it's posted or treated as guidance that's published. So I would just caution to be careful until it gets published. Because you don't want to enact something before it becomes effective. I don't see it. I even went to my COFAR, that's comments on federal regulations, and I don't even see discussion of it. So I'm not saying that that's not going to happen. I'm just cautioning you to let us get the let us get it published and issued by the Treasury, and then you can make informed decisions. Just want to be careful.
Thank you, Ms. Booth. We're still trying to get we're still trying to get the screen fixed.
Okay.
Um,
So just, Brian, if you want to kind of tell them what, and I know you've shared it with the council.
yeah, Ms. Booth, if you just want to kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think, and I don't have it in front of me, but we were talking about the same names, and that's fine, we managed to identify a number. There was a few that were the same names. There's a few that were ineligible, so I guess the other thing I would ask council to vote on is if something is only lost revenue that we wouldn't vote for it, again, it would fall to this unassigned bucket, and whether it's super flex, or if we ended up having any lost revenue left, we can use that. I know there was some last time, and again, we didn't give the name, we just gave the application number that said ineligible, and I think initially it said eligible, and then we corrected it. Mr. McGinley brought it up. So if anything's ineligible, I think we should say, we're not gonna vote on that. So you're just voting on applications that are eligible, that get you as close to 60 million as a max, and then you'd have a list for next time to vote on.
Well, I don't see how we could vote on an application that they deemed ineligible. I would hope the 75 or whatever that number ends up to be, all have eligible behind them. If we vote for something that's ineligible, then we have no choice but to put it in the lost revenue or potentially this flex area.
Right.
And
I don't think-
we know we're in trouble already with the lost revenue based on,
We're using most of it, right?
yeah, and council's allocated programs and applications to that. But we only had 8.9 million.
Right.
That goes pretty quick, just in roads alone, 600,000 for Kirby Avenue, 1.8 million for Sweet Valley, and we put $1 million, and Mr. Lombardo said, into our budget. So that's $3.4 million already out of that 8.9, which is well over 30%.
Right.
And IT got some money, we put some money in the prison. I mean, when you look at it, and
We're not recommending eligible projects. If you'll remember, I don't know if you can see the slide yet. We showed you the amount for the ineligible projects, and we're recommending to exclude them because you really don't have any in your
I
revenue.
think that should just be in the motion. We should say we're including ineligible.
Okay.
We're recommending, yeah.
I'll make a motion to exclude ineligible.
I'll second.
Okay.
Let Carl second.
Thank you.
That's another amendment.
I made a motion to exclude ineligible projects from the 60.
Yeah.
You seconded it?
No, Mr. Venus, he's on the clock, we want to make sure.
Excluding ineligible.
Excluding ineligible project.
60.
Motion by Mr. Wilovich, second by Mr. Venus.
If any, I don't know if there is,
Yeah,
but let's.
if any.
It's on the record.
Okay, roll call, Ms. Lawrence.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
Yes.
Mr. Wilovich.
Yes.
Mr. Venus.
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Ms. McDermott.
Yes.
Mr. McGinley.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo.
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right, did we already vote on the multiple applications one? Okay, sorry, I didn't check out. Okay, and you withdrew your motion? Mr. Thornton.
Which were about the flex and the roads.
Okay, thank you. All right, we still have to fill in the blanks in the
Page 20.
in the original item to change the score to what I assume is gonna be 47.
That's what we said, right?
That's what. They
That would get you the closest to
Yeah.
60 million for
Was
the.
it
fully funded.
47 and a half? I think I remember.
Ms.
I
Booth,
think it was 40.
It's,
47, I think.
if I could, it was actually 47%. But when we went through and did the duplicate analysis, it eliminated 3 multiple applicants. So the recommendation is to award them the highest scored applicant. So that eliminated 3, which got it down to about 58 million. So then we identified the next highest scores under 47. So it's really like 46.57. So we could bring in to get it to that 60 million. And that got it to 59,086,000.
Motion to award grants above 46 point.
46.5.
Yeah, to be safe, can you say 40? It's not, but it's, let me see what the lowest, since you all can't see. I want to tell you the exact percentage so that you have to go in that motion.
It's not a percentage, either, it's a score.
The score, you're right.
There's a point section and a percentage section.
Right, but I think.
I thought
We went to percentage, yeah.
So is it 47% or 47 points? Ms.
Percent, this is all percentile, it's no points. I'm gonna tell you the exact percentile. I just wanna.
35.
Okay.
Population
You have to
tracker.
fill in the points too.
Yeah, yeah, I would assume so.
First
So that would be
75 points, right?
So the first one stays the same, total possible score
possible
75?
total score equals 75.
Possible score,
stays the
75.
same.
Yes. Determine minimum score to be considered for awards, for example.
She's gonna give you the percent.
Yeah. and then
Okay,
she's
so
gonna give-
this, if you want, the score is actually 46.07% or higher. 46, that's the lowest one that was within the 3 that we replaced the bucket with. It's 46.07%.
Okay.
That's percentage.
Percentage.
Now
percentage.
what would the number be?
Let me.
Sorry.
35.
I can, it's not a problem. I can give it to you in 1 minute. 46.07. That is, let me unhide these cells. That's stuff.
Mr. Chairman, point of parliamentary inquiry, is this allowed for disbursement of monies? Because on the agenda, it says policies and procedures, and you're discussing disbursement of monies, which would require a change of the.
No, we're not changing the amount. We're just changing the number. Yeah, the procedure.
It's 34.56 is it the average score?
Okay, 34.56 then?
Yes.
Okay, first and the second, who's the first?
For the sake of the group. Read that out loud. so we
Okay,
know
all
what-
right, so the amendment is gonna be this. For point number 4 on the first page. Determination of the grade / score for award determination. Possible total score equals 75 points, which is the same as it was. Determine minimum score to be considered for award, for example, 34.56 points or 46.07%.
Exactly.
Which will get us to that 75 number, which will be 59 point whatever million. And
So
that's
it'll
what
get-
the amendment is. The amendment is 34.56 and 46.07%. And who was the first and second?
The second, forget the first grade.
That was great.
Well, we already said that, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we already did that. Yeah. I believe so.
Roll call on the number.
Yes, roll call, please.
Mr. Thornton,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Willoughby.
Yes.
Mr. Venus.
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Ms. McDermott. Yes. Mr. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo.
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right, now, any more amendments? All right, roll call on the original item. Which there was a first and a second, and it was who? Mr. McGinley and Ms. Radel?
I think so.
Well, that was for the multi
Oh,
submissions.
okay, sorry,
So the process, I have Mr. Willoughby and Mr. Venus.
that's fine.
Fair enough.
Okay,
All right,
this is for the process with the three
Amendments.
amendments.
yes, with all the amendments that are already, that we
That was
already
the
voted on.
identifying with the highest score, the identifying information with the highest score. We also had to exclude ineligible from 60 million, and then we amended the numbers. Okay, roll call
Okay.
is Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Willoughby.
Yes.
Mr. Venus,
Yes.
Mr. LaScavitch.
Yes.
Ms. McDermott. Yes. Mr. McGinley,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
Mr. Thornton.
Yes.
Mr. Lombardo.
Yes. All right, thank you for your patience on that one. All right, we'll now move into public comment on non-agenda items. Some papers here. Mr. Knapp, you have a non-agenda item to speak about? Okay.
Manico, Ronald. I just want to first mention what I had suggested, that work with IT to get this screen working for the ones who have this big screen TV to our back. We want to be in the loop. It's called transparency. Secondly, I wanted to mention Vice Chair Lombardo, chair now at the present time. In the start of your tenure on council, you talked about streamlining. Do you remember stating that?
Mhm.
But yet I see a lot of paper with information on it with a lot of toner, and I understand that every one of you are issued laptops, aren't you?
No.
No.
If we wanted them, we could have them, but I think only one or two of us actually have them.
Well, to,
Yeah.
be of good leadership, I would suggest streamlining and take advantage of that offer, a laptop, and utilize the data communication process as well. It's just an idea of having an internet connection for everyone in this room, separate from Luzerne County's connection for security purposes, so that they can bring up the data communication on their smartphones or their books. Because it's in a time of squeezing or tightening up the belt, without a doubt. I would hope you would agree. Now, in regards to discussion regarding ordinance amendment for fiscal budget for Luzerne County election integrity, I'm 100% behind this for the educational part of it. I agree with it because this happened at Ward 2 in Nanticoke. From my experience, I noticed an uneducated judge of election. First of all, they didn't let us into the building until 7:20. I think that the education should start with the people knowing about peripheral devices and how to connect them up and be ready in operation for the 7:00 a.m. timeframe. Any other time after that is disenfranchising voters. Okay. Also, and this was directed to a witness. This is a witness statement that I gave. Once we were able to get into Ward 2, I come around the corner and the judge of election actually had all the voting machines and the screens in the direction so everybody could see who they were voting for.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp.
We are lacking intelligence in the training department. So yes, it's sad to have to throw money at it, but we have to up the ante
Thank you, Mr.
on making sure people are educated. And that includes the amount of paper that's supposed to be for the election process.
Thank you, Mr. Knapp. Mr.
Thank you.
Griffith?
The issue about the lame duck thing, I'll send the recording to council. So you'll have a recording of that so you can verify that information. The timeframe for a question to go on the ballot is 20 Tuesdays before the election, and 13 Tuesdays is the deadline when it has to be done. We've done this many, many times, so we should have those numbers ingrained. And if you do the math on that, that gives you about a month and a half for council to act on that whole process. Council meets twice every 2 weeks, or every 2 weeks, so that's twice a month. It doesn't give you a very big window to get that work done. So I would suggest that you get all your homework done before the time that it has to get posted and get moving along with it, rather than wait until the last minute. Because as everybody here knows, I was here in October and November bringing up this whole issue about this home rule. And I know we had our plates full with the budget and all the other stuff that's going on. So I don't fault anybody for not acting on the home rule charter question. But there's plenty, it seems like there's plenty of time, but there's really not. So just keep that in mind if you're going to make any changes to the charter as a question on the ballot, and piecemeal this, as we all suggest, is probably a better way to do it. Just take the time to make sure that you get it done in time. Because once that window closes, you don't want to challenge it and go through all that work for nothing. Transparencies at the meetings. I know Mr. Thornton brought up about the executive sessions, and then today we had an executive session about personnel matters. We discussed union contracts. That's not clear enough. It should say what union contracts you discussed in executive session. Did you discuss LIUNA? Did you discuss AFSMI? Did you discuss, what did you discuss in executive session? That's what the public should get when we get an announcement about what happens in executive session. To Mr. Knapp's point, transparency is very lacking here at this council. And I don't know if it's by omission or if it's just something that we just get so busy we forget about. But it's very important when we do ABC committee interviews that the public gets a list of the people and what committee they're applying for. So we can provide input to the council that's interviewing those people. We didn't get that. Still is not posted, I don't believe. That entire process is still not posted. Who's the applicants and what position did they apply for? Because from what the interviews are that I saw, there's about 5 of them that are disqualified already. So something that the public needs to be aware of and public needs to give input to council. We're your friends. We can give you information that you might omit. So it's important that we use that partnership between the public and us to get information that could be beneficial that we may not know. And that's why it's important that the public know what's going on. And that's all I have, Mr. Lombardo. I thank you very much for the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Controller Griffith. Also, the ABCs, the applicants are posted on the website.
names.
Yeah, the names are there.
What
It's-
about
we just pulled-
what did they apply for?
we just pulled it up. It's here. It's the same page that that we received in the meeting. It says, like, it's, for example, the First Lady Stephanie Anashevsky, new
Right.
applicant, children and youth. And she was disqualified because she doesn't live in Luzerne County.
Yeah, but that wasn't out there when you guys did the interview. All we got was the names.
But it was fixed.
Yeah, so
It's
there
now
might have
fixed,
been.
right? Okay, thank you for fixing it. I appreciate
Yep.
it. Thanks, Sharon. Appreciate that.
Any other members of the public in the, go ahead, sir.
All right, my name's Mike. I'm from Kingston.
Wait, hold on. I
what's
need
your-
last name?
Dantone.
I'm sorry.
Dantone?
Yeah, I just ha-
D-A-N-
Tone. Yeah, I just have a quick question. The money, I guess there's for the funding for the grant. That's why I'm here. It's my first meeting. I guess there's $60 million and only 75 applicants. That's about $800,000 per applicant. How much?
Like 140 some applications.
Well, right now it's down to 75, right?
Because of the fact that.
Well, either way, that's about $800,000 per applicant. I know applicants just asked for 20,000 just to keep the lights on. That didn't think that this was a free meal ticket that goes to work every day. And they actually own 2 businesses and asked for $20,000 for each. So to limit them per, just because they're asking for 2, I ask you to put a cap on that. Instead of asking for $800,000 for a coffee shop, when there's guys that actually run businesses for multiple years that just ask for a nominal amount of money just for the utilities. That's why I asked the cap in. And I came here because I was hoping to get a date. It's been years now and there's still no date. I don't know if you ever go down Wyoming Avenue and you see the empty buildings, like main bike road that was open for 30 years. If this guy, you say we have till 2024, what are you gonna wait till more businesses close? I'm like this close to closing and I don't want to. And I'm asking for a date. So can we vote on a date, like maybe like 30 days or 60 days? Because not everybody's taking advantage of this. Instead of putting a cap on it, like you guys should, I don't understand. I sat here the only guy that I see that's trying to do something is him and the lady on the booth. Everybody's talking about hold the money. There's money for roads. There's money for roofs. What about the money for the businesses? You guys keep holding that. Could we get somebody to say what's the date, when it's the deadline before they do take it back? So why wait till that long until the businesses go out of business?
We don't have any intention.
Like I have,
to close, sir.
I have employees waiting to come back.
Mhm.
I was fighting with the governor not to close. I had to send 10 people home. There's people just trying to get money to buy M&Ms to put in the vending machines, not people that are trying to get $800,000 to open a coffee shop. So could somebody vote on when the money's going to be dispersed? Because the last grant was $5,000 to the company in Pittston, and it was 5,000 people that applied. They did that in 60 days. So what's holding these people, you guys, back for 75 applicants? What's holding these 75 applicants? And there's $60 million. Give somebody some scraps at least to keep going. Like maybe 30 days, give them something and then release something else.
Are we still on this timeline?
I believe so. I believe that we're supposed to,
The strip malls, they're closed.
yeah, I think we're supposed to vote on this at the upcoming meeting. Is that what it says?
That was the last meeting, I believe. That was the
Yes,
last
we're voting on the next meeting. We wanted to vote on this meeting, at this current meeting, but council members wanted a list and we couldn't get the full complete list. We just voted on the parameters at this meeting and there was no way to get the list all in the same meeting and vote on it and follow sunshine law. So we did the parameters this meeting and the money and the applicants will be voted on at the next meeting. Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're okay, Ms. Radel. Thank you.
Jamie Walsh from Ross Township. Mr. McGinley, did you say that there was some money allocated to Sweet Valley?
Sweet Valley Road,
Yeah, how much?
$1.8 million.
1.8 million. Thank you. I live there and it's horrendous. And I always think there's a bear by the bridge, but it was the patch job that was done.
They started the project, but they have not anywhere close. It's got like 80,000.
Okay.
Probably get some reports and surveys.
Okay, thank you.
Probably look more in the spring.
I didn't know if you were just saying Sweet Valley, like just using,
Sweet Valley Road.
yeah, Sweet Valley Road. That's the mess. Thank you very much. Secondly, on number 6 agenda item, motion regarding policies and procedures. What were the 3 amendments? It's so hard to hear in here in the back.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Do you want to finish your comment? Was that it? on
No,
your comment?
no, I have more, but I want to, in order to comment, I need to hear the amendments.
First amendment was that if there were multiple applications, we were going to use the identifying information and only select one application that had the highest score. The second amendment was that any ineligible projects would be excluded from the 60 million that they're awarding. And then the final one was filling in the numbers on the process. And percentage of projects changed from the original process.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The 75 total possible points stayed the same. The score, the minimum score to be considered for an award was 34.56 or 46.07%. Those were the amendments.
Okay, thank you. I don't really have an issue with number 2 or 3, but I do have an issue with number 1. Had that been on the agenda, and I really feel like you should put this on the agenda again. I didn't apply for money. I don't even know anybody who applied for money, thank God. But if there's someone that is requesting having multiple applications out there, it should be given to that person to withdraw one if that's the way. That should have been on the agenda prior to voting, because that person may have wanted to come here and speak, feel compelled to speak about something.
Yeah.
They may have been compelled to speak if they had multiple applications, and they may have had a real solid, hard reason for needing that money. And again, I don't have a dog in the hunt here. So I'm just saying, if I'm sitting out there and I knew that amendment was on here and I filed 2 applications and there was really good reason for it, I really think you should put this up to a new vote at the next meeting with that amendment, because that could really.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. We did discuss that at length at a previous meeting, and truthfully, what that parameter was set for is, there were a lot of municipalities that put in more than one application, and of course, we don't know what projects got what scores. That's one of the issues, is that everyone keeps asking us, like, why haven't we gotten this? We don't have a list. We don't have a list. Well, we're not getting the list because we don't want to have our eyes on the list so we can say, oh, I like this project. No, I don't like this project. No, this guy likes this project. Let's talk to this guy. We're trying to make it as fair as possible so that we can just go by, hey, these are what the numbers say. None of us saw it. We don't want anyone to say, that we gave this guy $1 million because he's our buddy or anything like that. So that's why we don't have that list. But because it was a lot of the situation was municipalities put in for more than one project, and there were some businesses that did that too. But if if, it was two separate businesses, same owner or whatever, we did address this already. So that's really what most of this comes down to. Mr.
Plus,
go ahead.
though, we weren't allowing any applicants to come in and talk to us
Yeah.
about it.
If an applicant came in, sorry.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, if an applicant came in, we would possibly have to disqualify them because they were advocating on their behalf. And we had to stop a couple of applicants a couple of times that did do that so that we could say, okay, we don't want to disqualify you, so just stop talking about your project so we don't have a bias towards it or against it.
The applications were judged solely on what they put on their application and what they gave us to look at, plus all supporting documents. And that's what we all went with.
And based on the survey questions that booth management gave us. Mr. Rabo, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark Rabel Hazelton. I just wanted to clarify what Controller Griffith said, section 2943 petition for referendum or ordinance proposing amendment to home rule charter. 20 weeks before the election, no one can sign or circulate a petition. And then the 17th Tuesday is when that would start the circulation process. And then the end would have to be before or on the 13th Tuesday before said election. So just to make that clear. I have a question with regards to the ARP and the disbursement. So the ARP flex that is being, for the 10 million or 30%, whichever is greater. I said this back 2 months ago when the finalization of the $55 million LSA grant was going on. And I proposed, why isn't a portion of that 55 million? And I believe I was here with a fellow redevelopment authority board member advocating for at least using that 3 million, the initial 3 million, to do a study to see if it could be used as a match for like the raise grant, for example, that, by the way, the application is still open for that grant, the federal DOT grant till the 28th of February. So if Michelle Sparish, Mr. Acting Manager, if you want Michelle Sparish to draw that up. I understand that there was an email that was sent to me by, I believe, either it was Mr. Flesh or Mr. Kurtz. I don't have it in front of me right now, but it says that they don't want to compete for the similar grant for Water Street Bridge. So they don't want to be in competition. The county doesn't want to be in competition with itself. So my question would be, as far as if the state would, if the county would ask the state for its portion of the ARP, because there's still $5.5 billion that the state's sitting on. I think it would behoove the county to, kind of ask the state, Harrisburg, to kind of loan us some, give us some match, just like with the transportation, with the LCTA and Hazleton Transit. Why not do something like that kind of configuration? I mean, I think that would go a long way in terms of all the county roads being paved. That's an option to explore, but time is of the essence because February 28th is the deadline for the raise grant. So I hope council and the acting manager explores that option. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rabel. Anybody else for public comment?
Do I need to say my name again?
Yes.
Vivian. It's so long to say. Vivian Kreidler, Listina from Nescapet. I've been following, I wanted to talk about the whole home repair program. I've actually been following that since it was brought up with the bill. And it seems like it's a really good program where a homeowner who needs to have a lot of insulation work done, siding, roofing, windows, everything. They're given the opportunity to get a grant up to $50,000. As where landlords are also able to get money, but theirs is distributed as a loan. So they get the loan from you and they have to pay back. So that leaves more money to keep going to give to homeowners who are elderly or low income. So I've been following it. I've talked to CEO out in Harrisburg about it. They explained a little bit about that. And this was a while ago when they still hadn't known when this program was going to be started, who was going to be in charge of it or what. So I'm glad that they're coming with that. It's helpful. And I'm going to be honest, I live in a tin can. I live in a double wide mobile home on its own property. And let me tell you, when that wind starts whipping, because I'm up on a hill and our thermostat is going, my electric bill jumped from 247 to 657 in the last month. In 2 months. And I'm like, I'm thankful for the programs I'm on that I can get help with it, or we'd be done. We would be done. I mean, food prices are skyrocketing. You know, the extra SNAP program that people are getting, that's ending the end of February. That extra food stamps is gone. You're going to see your senior citizens going back to between $16 and $30 a month in food stamps, if they're lucky, because of the COLA increase. The only thing that'll save you is that you're a disabled person or you're a senior citizen. You're entitled to, the government says you can't not give them anything. You have to give them something. So they're entitled to anywhere between $16 and $30 a month for food. Okay, so it's rough out there for every, and I'm not saying just for me or for any of these people. I'm saying for you too. It's rough on all of us. But if we can start helping one another, we're going to make a bigger difference, and we can show our lovely, wonderful state and federal government, hey, there's a county that can actually work together. I do want to say, and I don't know if you are aware of this, I want to say thank you to a Mr. Greg Griffin of Luzerne County. He's an older gentleman. Is he here? Hi. I only talked to him online. Well, I'm just saying. I want to say thank you to him. He has been with real quickly, with a group volunteering. They get extra supplies from construction workers, insulation, and they've been insulating homes that they can, like piecework of a broken window or that, to put insulation or board it up to help the elderly with that. So I just want to let you know that we are out there helping. You know, we're just trying, but this program that's coming in is going to be really good.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yep.
Anybody else?
I'm Jessica Morgan from Dallas Borough, and I'm here to thank Mr. Thornton for allowing a little transparency in an executive session. I don't think the public was aware that Judicial Watch had to sue our Luzerne County Election Bureau for $25,000 because of their dirty voting rolls. I'm sure that knowing the group of Judicial Watch, I'm a member, have been about 10 years. I know that they don't just come in and sue without asking first, please clean your rolls up. I don't believe this was the first time, however. I know I do believe in 2021, we were also sued for the same reason. But at that point, the Election Bureau chose to clean up its rolls and took off 16,000 people. 16,000 people. So my question here today is, other than saying thank you for bringing that up, I would like to see that same transparency to the public in the future, because as I say, I don't believe the public was aware of it. And so I thank you again. But I'd like to know, what are you going to do about the Election Bureau? How are we, years ago, I went in and I asked, I would like to help you clean up your rolls free of charge. I will volunteer. I was told we don't need it. We're abreast of the situation. 6 months later, I came back and asked the same question, was told the same thing. So I'd like to know who is in charge of this Election Bureau, that it continues to have these dirty, dirty rolls, that we need to be sued. And then we were told, then I understand that they said, oh, it's okay because we didn't have to pay it. The state paid it. Well, the state is the taxpayers. So I wish somebody from the council or somebody tell me, how do we fix our Election Bureau? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Anybody else for public comment? Go ahead, ma'am.
Diane Cowman, Kingston. I'm just looking for some quick clarification with the ARPA grants. The most recent timeline that was established states that the award and non-awardees would be notified starting the 25th through and ending the 30th. So, and then somebody just said, I think it was Ms. Radel said that the next meeting, there's going to be voting. So can you explain that to me?
The February 14th meeting is when we're going to be voting to award the money to the applicants.
So voting meaning going through the process of the 75 that have already earned that
We won't
grant?
be going, technically like going through the applicants. It's just whatever applicants meet the criteria that we just set forth along with what they filled out and the surveys and everything else we've gone through, just to make sure that we do it in a very, non-biased way.
Sure.
That's when we're voting on that, which ones are gonna get distributed that money.
And so then after that, the notifications will go out?
Yeah, is that
I would
25th and 30th of
Yeah, I
February?
think it's,
Okay.
I think it's 2 or 3 weeks afterwards. So council awards, you get the names, everybody gets the names. And then you have a grant execution package in the federal state government. You fill that out and then you'll submit whether it's invoices or whatever documentation you have. And then money will start going out. So the 14th, you get a list of everybody. 2 or 3 weeks after that, you have to fill out the grant application package. Once that's received, and then you have whatever support for the money put up, you'd be reimbursed.
So on the 14th, everybody will have a list and know, we'll all know.
Yeah, the public will know.
Okay.
Yes, everyone. I
All
think
right.
the council, the public, everyone.
Yeah.
And that's Valentine's Day, there should be a lot of love.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else public comment that's in the room? Anybody else? Anyone on the Zoom? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to
Oh, I
adjourn.
apologize. Up. I apologize. All right. I got a couple that I gotta read. Okay. This is from Robin Cochan, public comment. Agenda item. $300,000 is a hefty waste of taxpayer money to contract for assistance in distributing these funds when the federal government already provided guidance for the distribution, which included households. Entering this third-party contract indicates council does not want to be accountable, perhaps because it doesn't know what it is doing. It's not that difficult to provide taxpayers with a credit for stormwater fees when names and addresses already exist. If you do not vote to support this and offering to helping hand to all county taxpayers, we want to know why, and we will ensure voters know this at re-election time. This is from Nina Ropa. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be heard via email. First, I would like to say how extremely disappointed I am in the council that has continued to insist on giving the ARP money to organizations instead of to individuals who truly need it. My initial inclination is to say, what is wrong with you? Apparently, you have forgotten how many organizations have been called on the carpet for mishandling the money they have had donated to them. I'm sure there are many reputable organizations, but are you all well equipped to vet every single one of them before you hand over funds to them? I doubt that very much. The fact that the public will not be privy to how you make your selection is in itself giving off huge vibes that something nefarious may be going on with all of you voting for these funds going to organizations. I've heard many of the comments saying such. I've never imagined this is how you would conduct yourselves on council. There are many of us that will not be forgetting this mishandling of the ARP funds and will not only be voting against you, but will be working hard for those who will be running to unseat you. On the other matter at hand, the study committee, there is something very wrong with people who will not allow themselves to be studied. It smacks of arrogance and immaturity. There have been mistakes made, learn from them. Nina Ropa, Kingston Township. Ann Schillinger, hello, I'm writing to let you know I oppose the $54.9 million being used on the West Nanticoke Bridge. Our roads in the county are a mess and in need of immediate repair. Please fix them all. Ann Schillinger, Rice Township. Tammy Rittenhouse, my name is Tammy Rittenhouse. I reside in Ross Township. I have sent emails complete with photos about the deteriorating and dangerous roads county-owned roads out here and their condition. I would like to know how I can obtain the structural rating for the Nanticoke Bridge. $54.9 million could fix all of our roads in the county, but instead it is going to one bridge. There is another exit for Nanticoke close by. No business would be lost by closing the bridge because why is the liquor store, a bank, a gas station, post office, and various other businesses are there at the end of Nanticoke. Someone is going to get killed or seriously hurt on the dangerous roads out here. Broadway Road, Bloomingdale Road, and Main Road, Sweet Valley are a big concern. The last storm we had caused so much runoff that we had 3 sections of Broadway Road covered in thick ice with potholes. One section ended up being temporarily closed. I think that the money for the bridge should be used to repair our dangerous roads and keep the entire county safe. This is from Carol Rosser of Sweet Valley. Dear County Council, I thank you for your time in serving our county and for allowing me to take this time to draw your attention to my concerns. I know your agenda is full tonight. Hopefully it'll be very productive, benefiting the most Luzerne County residents possible in a positive way. So I will get right to the point. I see a lot of missteps in handling of many facets of our local government, and I am angered by the lack of leadership and accountability. I applaud the motion being considered tonight to pose the ballot question on our voting public about forming our government study commission to recommend changes to our home rule charter. Residents of Luzerne County are definitely fed up with the status quo and are looking for a change. Change was what we saw when Randy Robertson took the manager position in 2022, but sadly that was another disappointment. We residents were looking for actual progress and supporting our fight for much better infrastructure, especially for our county roads. We have heard for decades many excuses, not enough money, not enough workers, not enough information. Since 2019, our county has had many challenges, but also lots of opportunities for funds coming into the county from various sources, grants/loans. I am aware of the $54 million loan that was recently secured by your council against LSA funds to be paid back over 25 years and earmarked distinctly for the West Nanticoke Bridge. May I refresh your memory about Resolution 22-120 attached to this letter that states Randy Robertson as county manager, the designated sole official to execute documents and agreements for these funds and projects without the Luzerne County Redevelopment Authority and Community Financing Authority. Perhaps the resolution is now null and void and needs to be revisited. The resolution also clearly states that these funds include replacement of Nanticoke Bridge, as well as maintenance upgrades throughout the county. I would expect the phrase to mean any county road that needs upgrading. Council has a responsibility to address these discrepancies, go back to the drawing board before moving forward with this plan, resubmit a more balanced plan of revitalization of our roads to the redevelopment authority. I also see tonight's agenda that you're entertaining a motion to have the county manager, director of operations, or county engineer sign off on items pertaining to intermodal transportation grants. So you must understand that several key county positions are responsible for the betterment of our county infrastructure, and all positions should be keenly aware of the actions necessary to correspond to correct our deplorable roads. Passing the buck to another position is not acceptable any longer. It is not lack of funding that is suffering from. It is the will of the county government not to utilize the funds in the most efficient way. For instance, the county has $90 million set aside for ARP funds. Why has $65,000 in interest gone and then donated that money to the Salvation Army instead of hiring another road department person to help fix potholes like the ones I have reported on Hillside Road in November? In November, there were 2 large holes on that road. Now there are 6 large ones. Hillside is one of the worst roads in the county by your own assessment. Again, see the road list. You all know these roads have been repeatedly reported as dangerous. It's been like probably 3 minutes now since I started reading, so I'm gonna let it off. Okay. All right, this is from Laura Panero, Wyoming member, Fix Our Roads, Luzerne County. Good evening, council members. Our team has been working very hard to raise yours and our administration's awareness of our roads. Recently, a member of our team had asked those of you who voted against the West Nanticoke Bridge to continue to urge your peers who were in favor of the project to change their position and resubmit a list of projects for this loan. Our team has not seen or heard of any action to do so. Please understand that the $50 million replaced nearly every county road, and the projects could be done correctly by addressing drainage, guy rails, etc. We asked what studies had been performed, perhaps using 911 call information over the last 2 years to determine what emergencies were most affected by the conditions of our roads and bridges countywide. Again, the loan is backed by all of us and is eliminating the use of $3 million a year for 25 years from all of our municipalities. To hear how difficult it will be to replace our roads properly is beyond comprehension. Secure the funds and develop a phased approach for the next 10 years. 12 miles of new roadway per year per construction season is not unreasonable. Allow our road and bridge department to maintain and temporarily fix the other roads and trim our blinding vegetation while contractors tackle the worst rated roads each year. Often as of late, we feel as though answers are given are humorous and people are getting hurt. For instance, 2 FORLC members sprung to action after a 17-year-old's very scary encounter with a pothole on Blytheburn. Our team has correspondence going back several months regarding the road. Mr. Kurtz sent a crew out to fill numerous potholes with coal patch. Unfortunately, they were not adequately filled. Once a vehicle drove over the coal patch, it was packed down to reveal a shallower pothole. Many significant potholes were missed. The report back did not come from Foreman or Larry Plesh. The report back to Greg Kurtz came via video taken by yet another member of our team. The before and after is frustrating. Please understand the urgency to replace our roads. The pothole email is not being addressed. Promises are not being kept and travelers are in extreme danger. Lastly, it is important that the recent video of St. Mary's Road be reviewed. Our team's response back was that the road is next on the list for patching. We have asked that it is not patched, that it not be patched as we feel it is a waste of our taxpayer revenue. More patching does not help. The road absolutely must be replaced. Please, we are urging each of you to feel the extreme danger. Please drive these roads yourself. I can assure you that each of you on these roads will impact your decision-making. On behalf of all the members of FORLC, thank you in advance for your full cooperation and attention on this matter. This is from Martin D. Roberto of Crestwood Township, is requesting that we ensure that $54.9 million go to roads and not the Nanticoke Bridge at this time. The roads in Mountaintop are deplorable and I have to replace too many wheels, rims, and tires to count. Regards, Martin D. Roberto. This is from Cindy Brannon of Wright Township. Fix Our Roads, Luzerne County member. Good evening. Recently, a 17-year-old lady suffered a horrendous tire blowout caused by a crater, not pothole, on Blythburn Road. She did not immediately know or recognize the feeling of this damage and made it to I-81. It was on the interstate that her car filled with smoke and became disabled. Our county roads caused one of our young drivers to be stranded along the interstate. Let me repeat that. Our county roads caused one of our young drivers to be stranded along the interstate. Our road and bridge department was soon immediately notified and informed 2 members of FORLC surveyed the road in its entirety soon after. This road was discussed at the last council meeting by Mr. Greg Griffin. It was Mr. Griffin who joined another member to see the road's condition in person. The road has been a topic of great concern for months. We have no option other than winter cold patch. Road and bridge began addressing some of the craters soon after this horrifying accident with one of our young drivers. I sent you the video of Blythburn Road after road and bridge had become work. Unfortunately, most of the worst potholes and craters were not filled adequately, and so they were better, but still dangerous if hit straight on. Several very dangerous potholes and craters were missed entirely. An FORLC team member has reported back that work is complete and road and bridge is no longer addressing the very serious and dangerous conditions of this county road. We do not know if our county engineer or division head reviewed the work and considered it adequate, or if no review was done. I can assure you Blythburn Road needs more work and signs should be placed to warn drivers of this road's very dangerous condition. We need our council to ask questions. We need our council to question this critical department's work and perhaps request a daily log of business performed by this department. The monthly reports are repetitive and vague and offer little accountability when lives are at the risk of our own county roadways. Please request that our acting county manager and division head of road and bridge understand that our county roads and their conditions are putting lives in danger. Not all of our travelers are residents. They are not all familiar with our roads. It will only take one traveler unfamiliar and going the posted speed limit to run into serious trouble. Several of our roads can only be driven safely at 10 miles an hour. We need our council members to give direction before a closed door executive session is discussing a devastating lawsuit pertaining to our county roads. Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
I think we're
Go ahead.
Or wouldn't we do public comment by emails, or way we can time it so that way it's fair to people in the audience?
Yes, that's a good idea. Yeah.
But I we get to hear their whole state.
I apologize. I apologize. I understand.
Lombardo, I have one thing.
Go ahead.
For transparency's sake, Mr. Griffith, you're correct. The executive session tonight, earlier this evening, was regarding union negotiations with the unions of the district attorney and public defender's office. Thank you.
Assistant district attorneys, assistant.
Right. Okay.
So.
Motion by Mr. Venus, second by Mr. McGinley. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll come back at 8:55 for the work session. Thank you.
You're right.
Yeah, the question is.
So we're just taking back 24.
On the phone, budget. October 15th. What are you gonna do?
Well, did you email that? Did you email back? All right, I would email that.